Welcome to Sci Fi Center Live, Saturday night overnight edition. I'm William coming to you from this time. We're coming to you from the Sci Fi Center. There's a reason why I'm here and not at my home office doing the show, like we've done since we've kind of put this one together. Main reason is I am prepping for our live watch party for Game of Thrones, House of Dragon, Episode 1, Season 1. And the bar that we're doing it is the same plaza. It's called the Square Bar, and I'm building some props. And most notably, I am building a Iron Throne that is made out of styrofoam, believe it or not. So let me show you guys exactly what I'm talking about here. So let's see. So right there, started out as a printout. Then I'm measuring up against a normal chair, and there's a big chunk of styrofoam that I'm going to put all that on, cut all the white edges off, cut the dimensions out of it so that that front part is going to the front and the back, and then I'll re-replicate the sides, put more styrofoam sheeting on the things. Basically, it's cheesy, low budget, but it gives the tourists and people that are going to be showing up for the show tomorrow something to play around with, something to take some cheesy photos with, and have fun. It's been tomorrow. It will be 1,190 days since we last had Game of Thrones to play around with. So it'll be fun to jump back into it again. Everything I've heard about the show is great. A lot of people who had a bad taste in their mouth about episode or season 8. A lot of it's going to be washed away if they give House of the Dragon a chance. So let me go in and bring in my Star Trek wingman, even though we don't have any Star Trek to talk about yet, but we'll get to that later on. Thanks for showing up, Brian. How you doing, man?
Yo, I'm doing okay. I'm doing all right. Uh, yeah, unfortunately, I didn't really watch too much of the stuff as far as topics tonight. I watched She-Hulk, and that's about it.
You hope
I
it.
well, as far as like House of the Dragon, I don't plan on getting my HBO Max back anytime soon, so I don't know if I'll be able to watch that one, unfortunately. But it sounds like y'all
Yeah,
are gonna have some fun for it, so
yeah, we're gonna do a
that's
live stream.
nice.
Oh, yeah, one of the things that we're gonna do for not only are we gonna do the show, we're gonna do a live stream. We'll be there watching the people, watching people watching the show during the live stream. But we're going to do a actual show afterwards. We're gonna do a Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon um, post show. So don't tune into that unless you want spoilers, because we will be spoiling that show. That will air right at 6:15. Actually, no, the show starts at 6 o'clock, and this first episode is 1 hour and 6 minutes long. So I'm going to give people 10 minutes to settle in, absorb whatever they saw. Hopefully, it's a great show, and we can we can discuss it, and I'll have some people on to discuss it as well. But mainly, it's going to be I'm going to have the studio audience there. Some of the people that we have showing up, we're going to put them on camera and see how they felt about the show. Like I said, it's been a very very long time since we've had the show. Let me show you guys the flyer for that. I got all kinds of screens on now, but I know what I'm doing. So there's and this will be on the Poindexter Lounge, as well as the Sci-Fi Center's actual site, actual YouTube page, which I'll leave the link in before I go. So it'll be a simulcast, and you can join us in both places. And like I said, we're just going to be discussing some of the new characters we've met, some of the stuff that's gone on. Seeing so many dragons, there are 17 dragons in this show. There's fighting dragons, dragons fighting in pits, dragons fighting in midair. Lots of Targaryens. We're going from Game of Thrones, where we only had basically 2 or 3 Targaryens to deal with for the entire series, to lots of Targaryens, an entire family of incestuous Targaryens. And if you've known the show, if you followed the show, you know incest is a part of being a Targaryen. They are a house that considers their blood so pure that they try not to mix it outside the family. Do what you got to do to survive, I guess. So yeah, we're looking forward to that, and just a lot of cool stuff coming up. I mean, as we read it, we'll roll in the fall. We got Black Adam, we got Shazam, we have all kinds of TV shows that are going on. I mean, even some Star Wars stuff that I'm not looking forward to as much. I know some people are looking forward to Andor, not that big in Andor, but like I said, we got like we were just talking about off air, we got some Star Trek coming up that is really going to be enough to talk about. But like I said, me and you got to get together on 10 forward because there's so much stuff we could break down. I could literally bring out technical manuals, online technical manuals. I like I was telling you before, we need to, whenever we do 10 forward together, one of us or both of us needs to be in uniform. And I got uniforms here. I will dress up for you on 10 forward if you have me on.
Well, we've been discussing potentially coming down and visiting you in a couple months. So.
Oh, that would be great. That means you can come down and you can try on some uniforms.
That's right.
Okay.
You get
All
down
right, so let's go ahead and say hi to the chat real quick, and then we're going to go ahead and jump into She-Hulk since we both watched that. All right, so we're right here, Fourth. You were early. Hi, Stella. Yeah, that's old William, as opposed to dead William. I'll take the alternative. How you doing, Vince? Mikey Jeebus. Okay. William was there. You know what? And the fact is, I'm literally building an iron throne or styrofoam throne. It's hilarious that he put that in there.
Right.
So yeah,
he was there when they put when they sealed the mother boxes too. You want to rub that in? No.
Hey, that'd be some cool things to do around. You know what's really cool is I'm seeing people that are dying in their 90s and their 100s, right? And I envy the fact that what these people have seen. They saw an era with no TV, where their main staple of entertainment was the radio. The broadening of their imaginations that had to happen with just having sound. Then they saw the invention of the TV. Then they got to see the wonder of people getting on the moon. Then they got cable. Then they got car. I mean, they had all these things. They could appreciate the phones and the cell phones and the touch screens because they've seen what life was without it. And I'm like, in some ways, I envy the people who were not born into this era of always having a cell phone, always having Netflix, always having the internet. Because, like I always say before, you have these random encounters that you just don't have. You get mad at somebody on the internet, you can unfriend them, you can block them, and the conversation just doesn't have to go anywhere. If you work with a person, or you live with a person, or you meet with people at a comic store every week, you tend to work harder to dissolve disagreements when you see people every day at the bar, at the comic store, at the gaming place, because those are your comrades. And you realize that there are 365 days a year, and you were mad for 3 of them. So what if you had the ability to unfriend your comic book buddy from back in the day, just because he disagreed with you on a Neil Gaiman story or something like that, or you thought DC sucked and Marvel sucked? You would have never grown into lifelong friends. And now it's like, it's just so easy to click the X and it's over with. So those
thanks,
people
Star Trek. Oh.
Yeah, I mean, Star Trek, I think, was worse when the internet came around because it gave a lot of people.
Well, I full on believe what Rick Berman said. There were 2 things that created the internet: Star Trek and pornography.
Yeah, there you go. And both of those are still going
Star
strong.
Trek chat rooms, and then when you're done there, go see the,
Oh wow! Okay, I got all kinds of old jokes in here. This is the effect of Enoch even when he's not on the screen. William's so old he comes in from a dead continuity. William was the first Stark. Now we're actually going to see the first Stark. Repped as a cryptid. Okay, all right. I'm young, spry, and fit, and better shape than most of you. Stay on the chat room.
That's right, man. I'm about ready to croak it, and I'm not even 40 yet.
Yeah. So let's jump into She-Hulk because She-Hulk. The first episode was a normal amount of rage. What did you think of this episode?
Oh, it's pretty good starter. Good entry point. The thing I love about all this stuff, and the thing that kind of chafes against me sometimes, is because I have no experience with the source material at all. So I kind of take each one of these shows as they come fresh. So I'm like, yeah. What'd you think of the show? I thought it was pretty damn cool. I mean, yes, there were aspects of it that reminded me of other shows, like, oh, sure, like the fourth wall breaking. Oh, that's Deadpool, or kind of fighting in the car, slow motion flipping over, kind of eerily reminiscent of Deadpool. But no, honestly, little things like that. If I said that any of the quote unquote wokeness bothered me, I wouldn't be sitting here talking right now because none of it
Yeah,
did.
I enjoyed it. Some of the CGI needs work, but CGI is hard, and we have to understand that we are turning these comic book IPs into real life. And imagination is one thing, making that imagination happen all the time. I think for the most part, these guys get it right for the most part. When we're watching the shows, I'm rarely disappointed. So there are some spots, but they also improved a lot from the trailer. I love this actress, Tatiana
Yeah, yeah,
Maslany. She's great. She's great.
yeah.
I will say it over and over again for those of you who, if this is your first time seeing her, please go watch Orphan Black. Watch every season of Orphan Black. You're going to see one of the best actresses this generation has to offer on any medium. This woman played 8 characters over the course of 4 or 5 seasons, and some of them in the same episode. Just imagine having to compartmentalize, and they're all drastically different. One of them's an assassin, the other one is a housewife, a stuck-up housewife. The other one is a street criminal. The other one's a cop, and they're all different. There's British ones, there's American ones, there's a Ukrainian one, and this is all being played by her, and she sells it to the point where I believe this woman is all these people, and the story is great. And nothing changed my opinion in She-Hulk. My favorite scene, I'm not going to spoil it, but my favorite scene was when Bruce puts her in with the blades,
That was
and
kind
she's
of cool.
like, "Yeah, why do I feel if I don't transform, I'm going to die?" And then he hits the saw. It's like, "Wait a minute, you're just going to kill me?" And I can believe her. I mean, she's adorable, but she's intimidating at the same time, and
Yeah,
she's believable as her character. So, tired of that version of the Hulk, but I understand he had to be there. He was a necessary
it
factor. He was
fit
a
the
necessary
it
part of the
fit the
origin.
story. Yeah.
Yeah, it fit the story, and I love the anger, the way she controls the anger. I know some people thought that was woke, but you know what? The way
You ever
she
worked?
explained
Have you
that,
ever worked around a female before? Just saying.
well, and
They,
the way she
they handle
articulated,
anger a lot differently than most men do. I'm just saying.
I love the quote. She's like, either because I get the cat calls, I get men, lesser qualified men explaining my profession to me, and if I don't, keep it in control, I might get mugged or hurt, or I might even be murdered. I mean, she said some words to those effects, and I'm like, wow, that's true. I mean, as guys, we just take it for granted. I mean, certain things just don't happen to us.
Well, not only
Um,
that, but to add another layer to what she was saying is that she's a criminal defense attorney. So if she
yeah,
doesn't like mind her P's and Q's with certain criminals, yes, she could potentially lose her life. It's not. I didn't take it as like, you know, being erased or anything like that. You know what I mean? People
yeah.
people people going to that extent to be like, oh well, blah 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 blah. I'm just like, not
Well, when she
yet.
said that he's being murdered, because like I said, I mean, obviously women, when it comes to violence, women get preyed on more than guys. So I can understand where she's coming from there. But her mentality, the way she approached it, I thought was great. And then the way she changed into Hulk, and he thought, see, you're losing control. I say, no, I'm doing this. Like I said, as soon as I heard she got cast for this role, I was like, that's perfect. I didn't even need to see how she was going to look in the makeup. I left that up to the text to make that. But as far as actability goes, I knew she was going to be the perfect person for the job, and she is. And the show is fun. Once again, stop it with these damn 37-minute shows. What is wrong with giving me an hour?
Well,
What,
I don't know,
I
man.
I get not getting to Game of Thrones. Stranger Things gives me hour and a half episodes, nine episodes for one. Not only do I get 9 episodes, I'm getting an hour and a half. The last 2 episodes of Game of Thrones this last season were an hour and a half and 2 hours and 20 minutes respectively. Now I'm not saying they all have to go that far, but they have 37 minutes. I'm just getting into it. I'm just getting, and then you start rolling the credits, and then I look at the actual time of the episode. I got a problem with have that being just black space of.
It's all credits. 90% of
Yeah.
it says it's 38 minutes, but it's really like 29 minutes with the rest credits.
I mean, at least give me a cool end credit scene. They didn't even give me that this time around. So,
Well, at
yeah,
least they got something as opposed to the other shows that don't give you anything.
yeah, I enjoyed it. I want more of it, and like I said, I love her addition to this universe. So I had a lot of fun with the character. Like I said, now that Bruce is out of the picture, she's going to start seeing her own little gallery. The fact that she's breaking the fourth wall, and I keep hearing people bring up Deadpool because a lot of people who are new to her character didn't realize, that she was the first person to really do that back in the 80s and 90s. When John Byrne first took over the character, that was one of the hallmarks that he did. Is she would literally be like we were talking about it with Dave last week. We were she would literally be running across the comic book in the pages, running from one page to another, talking to you, trying to get from one place in the comic to another, running through the pages. So that's what she did. She's always been that way. So I love the fact that they added to the comic. I like the way she looks. She looks good enough as far as like the way the comics look. She literally looks like the John Byrne version of this character. So certain artists and certain writers use their sex appeal, this big giant sexy green Amazon looking thing, and certain ones just didn't. Some certain ones, focused on her character. It feels to me like they're focusing on the John Byrne, version of the character that first appeared in 1989. Okay, all right. Yeah, okay. The show is cool. Temple is right. She's written like as a villain. I must have missed something. I changed glasses stackers. Oh, you're getting funnier. You're getting funnier, Monkey Jesus. Ah, jeez. All right. So Sandman episode was so good. Like, yeah. For those of you who are watching Sandman, you got a bit of a surprise. Some people knew about it before certain other ones, but you got two bonus episodes. So not only are you getting I think it's 10 episodes, the normal episodes, you got an extra episode. Cat of a Thousand Dreams and Calliope, all from the comics. Everything that this show has done has I haven't seen an adaptation word for word this good since Watchmen. Because if you look at Watchmen, for as much as they could put into a 3 hour show, um, Watchmen verbatim is what the show was. With the I'm talking about the 2009 3 hour version of it, where people were being quoted. I mean, uh, Dr. Manhattan is quoted. I mean, they're word for word, just like 300. 300 was another one that was frame for frame. This show literally takes the essence of the book. Let me get She-Hulk off the screen there because I think with only one episode to talk about, I think we'll have to do a review of that character. But with with Sandman, I bought these books back when they first came out. I with the first year I opened my store, to be honest with you, was at their height. I mean, they were popular then, but somehow in the mid '90s, especially once the Vertigo brand took hold, Sandman and Vertigo and Hellblazer, all these things reached a height, zenith, and that's where I was watching a lot of these characters come about. When I was reading these characters, I never thought because whenever somebody does an adaptation of things, you always are going to lose things a little bit. There's just no way. Sometimes you just you just can't. There's just certain things you in a comic book show that that you cannot do, and they're finding a way to do them. They're finding a way to make the conversation between diverse conversation between Lucifer and Sandman as meaningful on screen as they did in comic. The scene with Death and her that famous quote that she always does, I was here at the beginning quote, that was great. Matthew the Crow was irritating at first because Patton Oswalt's voice is irritating to me, but he fits the character that he's supposed to do. I like Constantine. It's weird hearing people pronounce it that way after all this time. This character here, Hob Gadling. All right, so this was
Hey,
on the back end.
I'm gonna take off, buddy.
All right,
You have a good night, guys. Go ahead.
you too, man. We'll get together and we'll get our Star Trek thing going.
Oh yeah, man, it's coming back next week. So
All right,
We'll
man. See
have
you
some
later, bro.
fun. Take it easy. Have a good night.
All right. But this character right here, this character comes in on the back end of things, and what it is him and Death are in a bar. I think it's back in 1489, if I'm correct, 13 or 1489, and this guy, this particular character, is sitting at a bar saying, "Why do people have to die? Why is death necessary?" And Death and the Sandman look at each other and say, "You know what? These guys wouldn't survive if they had to live forever. After 50 or 60 years, they will be begging for death. Why don't we give this guy his wish?" And so he walks over. Death does it. He walks over and says, "Why do you want to live forever?" And gives him this whole thing. And he says, "Okay, I'm gonna, your wish is granted, and we're gonna meet at the same tavern, at the same bar every year, or every 100 years on the same day. So it's the 89th year of every century." So they continue to meet. And what I liked in this particular character on screen, more so than I liked in the comic, is the way the evolution of all both characters are visited in this comic. Not just him as he grows old, or he just doesn't grow old, as he grows as a person throughout the hundreds of years that a normal person would die. His ups and downs, his losing everything, gaining everything, meeting the queen, being broke, being rich again, going back and forth, and then going into the final year that you see him, I think is 1989, and then the one of the times that he meets with Morpheus, he's like, I finally figured out why you keep coming back here every 100 years is because it's for companionship and exploration of us. And Morpheus at that time, this is before he gets captured and imprisoned for 100 years, is like, how dare you? I'm one of the endless. I'm a god, pretty much. I don't need you. And he ends up after he was in encased for 100 years. One of the very first things he does once he breaks free is he comes back to that bar. The bar's been closed down, but a new bar has been taking place, and he walks in on that guy, and he basically says, "I owe you apologies. I've been told it's not polite to keep my friends waiting." So he evolves throughout the show into somebody that needs nobody, and to somebody that appreciates the value of not just of friendship, companionship, but the value of his purpose. One of the most important things about this episode is that he has gone a millennia, on top of millennia, just doing the job and taking things for granted and taking mankind for granted. Is just that he's there. This is what he does. This is what he is, and it's just become mundane to him. And that's what makes the conversation with Death so important, is because of the fact she basically shows him what mankind means to the endless, what it means to them. Her job is nothing without humans. Yes, she shepherds the dead into that realm, but she's only a bridge. She's there for them. It's their lives that they live, that the importance of the lives that they live, that makes her arrival to shepherd them so important. They're nothing without her, and she's nothing without them. And it's the same thing about the dreaming. For the dreaming to even mean anything, people have to dream and they have to have hope. And that's one of the things that in the books that more and more as he journeys and meets other people after he's done in his captivity, he appreciates his part in this whole thing, and he also appreciates humankind's part in this whole thing. So I was really impressed with this episode. And like I said, if you I don't know what episode some of you guys are on. Some of you have finished it. Let's see. Have I just about? Let me see. How about this? All right, 4 foot 1,000. I just moved the microphone closer. Getting used to having the microphone up here instead of down here. Let me know if that improves anything. Plus, let me check my settings and make sure that I am on the right mic, because it's been switching back to the computer's mic instead of this Amazon mic that I picked up. So let's see what mic. Oh, you're right. I'm on the wrong mic. Thank you for pointing that out. Let's go.
All right. Okay. So, all right, fourth. I just switched it to the right, one. And let me know if you guys can hear me. unmute myself. All right. So everybody can hear me? Cool. So, all right. Head stream. Device not recognized. Okay. So I did that and messed up my camera. So let's see if we can get this done. All right, camera. There we go. All right. So can everybody hear and see me now? Respond yes if you can. Oh, I can see me and I can hear me. So let's go into the chat and see if I live. First time I've ever had both things fail on me like that in the middle of the show. Let's make sure we are on. So let's make sure. All right. So yeah. Okay, we're back on. Let me go ahead and mute the YouTube feed and put that on there. And so, all right, cool. All right, wow. Usually one or the other fails, but yeah, let's make sure that I'm on the good mic because that the one that it went to the defaults of the yep, we're on Amazon Basics. All right, cool. So yeah, the evolution of this character has been my favorite so far. There's been other characters on here that we didn't discuss last week. Desire is a character that I think that is absolutely stunning in the way that character is portrayed. Rose Walker, I got a different feel. She's one of the first characters that whose feel in the show was different than the comic. I didn't connect with her character as much as I thought I would. Obviously, we talked about Death. Death was perfect. This was perfect casting. Appearance wise, like I said, when it comes to abstracts, I don't think they needed to do as much as people think. Obviously, we have a Morpheus. He looks great. But there was one here where that focused on the casting of Desire, and from the moment I saw that character, that character is perfectly played. Let me bring up. Let's see. I had her up here, but I forgot the actress that plays her name. But there's her picture right there. And a lot of these things that if you guys have never seen this show or if you've never heard of these IPs, pick up some Sandman stuff. You don't have to have read the Sandman to appreciate the show. However, if you have, you will understand just how well done this show is. It is just it is a stunning portrayal of Neil Gaiman's work, and I thought Neil Gaiman would be one of the hardest authors to ever be able to adapt, and they've done it. So here are the endless: Destiny, Desire, Dream, Delirium, Morpheus, Death. So these are your main characters. The endless, they're siblings. They're 7 siblings. They are. They have a weird relationship, but even in this show, and I think the show drives a couple other things. The fact that the family element, This is something I just never got reading in comics in the 80s and 90s. I just never got the family element. They just tolerated each other, but there's more of a family element in there. Even some of the people, some of the endless that are doing some vile things, it's a civil rivalry. It's what it is. And I think they drive this point home a lot more. Yeah, I'm sheltering. I'm building a new bulletin board, information board behind me here. So that's why a lot of the light is weird, because I'm usually somewhere else. And yeah, I'm sorry, I don't have my cat ears today. I'm at the store doing this because we're prepping for Game of Thrones tomorrow. So I got a lot of building and a lot of prep to do right after this show's done. I'll be here till 2 a.m. Pacific time. So yeah, but yeah, I didn't have my cat ears today. I barely had a mic and lighting enough to do what I needed to do. So I was going to not do this show today. But with everything going on, everything today has been just about work, work, work. It's fun work, but like I said, I enjoy the interaction and the conversation with other geeks, and that really makes this less work. Once I can get online or talk with a customer in the store and make that connection, I understand I'm not just going through the motions. What we do in the role we play, whether it's a customer or online, means as much to me as much as the people who are listening and coming through the door. So let's see. Dr. Critical Critic, this is the first time I have heard from you. Is Sandman good like the comics? I've never read them and I have no idea what it's about. Yes. In some ways, it's better. And it's no way, shape, or form to demean the comics themselves. It's just that when you're reading a comic book, certain things that I think Neil Gaiman tried to get over to push across 30 some odd years ago may or may not have resonated with every reader. Here, as I see them in motion, they resonate with me a lot more. When I see the way he puts one of the characters out of their misery because they had gotten a hold of the sand and they had done so much damage to their body, there was no saving them. How he gives that particular character a peaceful death. I've read that in the comics, but seeing it on screen was so much more compelling. The battle between Lucifer and the Sandman in Hell, read that in the comics, but seeing how it's articulated, seeing Gwendolyn Christie go for it, seeing the visual aspects of it that are not just on an abstract page made it great. If you have never read the comics, it is still a good show. You can listen, if go ahead and watch the show, whatever you've done first. If you're one of the people who watched the show first and then you're going into the comic book, nothing wrong with that. If you're one of the people who read the comic and then you're going to the show, nothing wrong with that either. Whatever you tackle first, both are such quality pieces of art. You're going to be satisfied no matter what you jump in. So go ahead and right now jump into the show first if you need to. It will not hurt your enjoyment of the comic. If you never read the comic, it won't hurt your enjoyment of the show. I think you should do both because I'm partial. I sell comics. But however you get into these IPs, these adaptations, I'm all for it. Okay, so wow, didn't know that. He does a great job for a character that is only on the screen for literally half the episode, because this part takes place in the lower half, and the way he literally changes, and that's what I mean about what I was talking to Brian off air about people who grow old. They get the chance to see things before and after. Somebody who's in their 90s and their early hundreds, if they've lived that long, saw this world without television and only had to use their imagination through radio. They didn't have the internet. They didn't have television. They didn't have cars in certain situations. There's a lot of things that they didn't have, and yet they got through day by day. They got to watch these things progress. And as I'm watching The Sound of Her Rings, the back half of it, I'm watching this guy go from 1489 to 1989 and the things that he's appreciating. He doesn't mind living forever because he's absorbing the way the world's changed, and he could juxtapose it on what he has seen. And that's the same way as a person who's in their 90s. That's why whenever I see people that old, I try to pick their brains. I'm like, you saw this world before this. Even a guy like me, 47, as you know, we didn't have 300 channels of cable when I was a kid. We also didn't have cell phone. We didn't have a lot of these things. And while these things are great, sitting at the comic book store all day long, meeting with your buddies, doing the D&D things, meeting people at the bookstore, and because you were in the comment section and you sparked up a conversation. These are things, these random encounters is why I opened up a brick and mortar business, and why, even though in the age of digital, I stay in a brick and mortar business, because I think those random encounters are very, very important. And we just don't have them in that way before. We have people that are, not to make fun of millennials, anybody like that, but you were born into a digital age where you can just click on the X, and if there's an issue, block somebody or unfriend them or something like that. Hell, our limited amount of geeks, we were all we had. We had to solve our issues. If we had a disagreement about geekdom or certain comics or like that, or X-Men sucked and Spider-Man was better like that, we just didn't storm out of the comic book store, because guess what? Where we were at the next Saturday after the comics came in, we were sitting in the same area with that same comic book store owner. So when I'm watching this episode of Sandman, just watching him, even he had the brick phone from 1989, it was hilarious. But watching this guy appreciate all this, and the Sandman himself, he's immortal. So time to him, even that 100 years that he's in captivity, that all those people grew old and he stayed the same. So time for the endless is nothing, but now he's seeing time through the eyes of a mortal who's living forever. And they just didn't pull it off in the comics as good as they pulled it off on screen. And the comics are brilliant. So that tells you how much I feel about the show. Keep hitting this mic because I have to get used to having all this stuff around me. All right. Death was great. Yep. Rhea, hey Rhea, I saw your stream. You guys are hilarious playing the games today. I wish I could have donated, but I didn't have my account hooked up. But do those again. Rhea did a cancer stream, a stream where she was raising funds for cancer, and I don't know how much did you end up raising, Rhea. Anytime people donate to things like cancer, childhood cancer, HIV research, Alzheimer's, ALS, any of these disease, every bit helps. When it comes to trying to find a cure, it buys time for these doctors to come up with different innovations. It buys people time to live better lives and get better treatment without bankrupting themselves, so that they may be around for those treatments. So whenever you see somebody doing a stream, even if you're not into it, if you can donate, I'm going to start doing some charity streams myself. There's a lot of causes. I love animals. I'm going to start doing, adopt a pet, things like that help animals. Find homes, put animals in the hands of vets, people who are coming back from combat. So I'm going to start doing more charity streams, because like I said, before my only platform was a store, but if I can reach people and raise 50, 20, 60, 70, whatever, every bit helps. When you need money, nobody turns it away. So thank you, Rhea, for doing that and just being an all around chirpy, cheerful person. Okay. So, all right, so let's see. Oh my God, yes, Sandman. Long time no see, Sri. So I'm just going through the. All right, if it's that comic's accurate, then the show is proof that you can make. Yeah, and here's the thing about that. I don't want to spend too much time on Sandman, because I could spend forever on Sandman, and we kind of cross over. But I know what I wanted to do with Sandman this week is I wanted to go in phases and give people chances to watch the series, because not everybody can binge watch. So I'm going as I think people have progressed along, and when I get to the point where I think people have watched it all, then I will go ahead full on review. The accuracy is there, not in necessarily the visual aspects, so those are there and those are excellent. Where the accuracy for me is how I felt when I first encountered these characters in the comic books. What was the point Neil Gaiman was trying to expose, and what was he trying to put across? Death, her character is literally a walking, talking lesson about life and death. How she handles herself, even in the episode of Sound of Her Wings, how she gracefully talks to these people, how she comforts these people on their way over. She's the Grim Reaper. She's literally the Grim Reaper, yet she does her job with grace. And I just, the look and feel of death from seeing her in the comic and then seeing her on screen, it's accurate. Even though she's not pasty with with black, jet black hair and, just, looking like, she did in Sandman #8. I don't think Neil Gaiman was going for that as much as the look and the feel. You felt like you were watching the character Death. when you're watching the show, and you feel like you're watching Morpheus when you're watching the show. Even Constantine, the gender swap, you understand the character, and it does not harm the character at all. So the accuracy in a very abstract way is it exceeds the comics for me. And I'm just happy that we have a medium that I can realize the Sandman on a screen like this. It's literally up on my screen right now, on my big screen, because we were watching some of the episodes today with some people. So accuracy, you can. Now, to your point though, you don't have to take the approach all the time that Neil Gaiman took. Sometimes what the Sandman is the spirit of the characters and the spirit of the story and the myth. So a lot can be done with that to the point where you have some wiggle room, and you have Neil Gaiman working on it. And when it comes to standard comic book characters, it's a little bit different because some of these characters have been around. We're now getting movies about things that half of comicdom was created by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. And Jack Kirby died in the 90s before the big boom of comic book movies. So he wasn't even a part of it. Yet the people who are writing these things today are interpreting the characters that he created within their own time. Black Panther is a key example. When Black Panther was created, the character Black Panther preceded the Black Panther movement. When Black Panther was created, folks of color were in a much different place in society as far as even being able to acting jobs, voting rights, civil rights, things like that. And Stan Lee was a civil rights guy. He was son of immigrants. He was all about representation, and it was really hard for him in the early 60s to put a black superhero banner, at the top of the banner. As the civil rights movement progressed in the mid-60s, he was able to do that. But if you look at the Black Panther, the way he's depicted and accepted by society then, and then you see Coogler's movie come out in Black Panther, the regalness of that movie, the feel of that movie, that's not how, that may not have been how Jack Kirby envisioned these characters. They envisioned a superhero. And yes, T'Challa's a superhero, but it's the atmosphere of Black Panther. So sometimes you can be screen accurate. There's people who could probably take T'Challa, Black Panther, and strictly focus on the superhero aspect of him, and never and spend 2 pages in Wakanda a year. So it all depends on who is taking up the IP. In this case, the guy taking up the IP and sitting in the advisory chair is the guy who created it. So he's going to get the benefit of the doubt. And like I said, I did not think I would enjoy this series. I was scared when they told me that, even with Neil Gaiman on board. I was like, how can you do this? How can you make this abstract thing feel even more like that thing in motion picture? And they did it. So it has, like I said, it's not Mindhunter for me. Mindhunter for me is the best thing. Netflix has ever done. If you haven't had a chance to watch Mindhunter, I will take this to the grave. Mindhunter is the best show on Netflix. David Fincher, please give me a 3rd season if you're watching the stream. So yeah, that's Sandman's it's a different animal. It's accurate and not accurate at the same time, but it has the feel. You're watching Sandman. All right, so Voltaire 325. How do you feel about Hot D? You know what? By the way, how do you feel about George R.R. Martin referring to the new show as Hot D? He's referring to House of the Dragon. That's an acronym for House of the Dragon. I'm okay with it. Right now, the only nerves I have about the show is from what I'm hearing, it's great. I know several people who've seen the show. I've heard it is excellent. And somebody who is as big as a Game of Thrones nut as I am said it's probably better than the original show. And remember, out of the 8 seasons, that show built up. That show, from what I'm hearing, this show starts off up here, whereas Game of Thrones built up over there. Game of Thrones didn't reach that point for me until season 4. Season 4 was after that. There were no bad episodes of Game of Thrones until we reached season 8, and you had those horrific last 2.5 episodes. But I want people to forget about that and enjoy House of the Dragon. But yeah, so what I'm hearing about House of the Dragon, it is raising the standard for Game of Thrones, and I am looking forward to it. We did since the beginning, I think maybe actually not the first season, but the second season, after Game of Thrones started to pick up, we did watch parties here at the center, and when we just pack the house here and we would watch it. And, especially for the first 4 seasons of Game of Thrones pretty much depict everything that happens in the book for the most part. Everybody who dies, and there are certain characters that are created, that are in the show, they're not. But for the most part, the first 4 seasons pretty much line up with the books. The Red Wedding, the battle, between the Mountain and the Viper, those things all take place, the history of the show. Once we start getting into season 5, because they started going beyond what George R.R. Martin had written, the 2 showrunners started to do their own thing. Didn't have a problem with that, because what they were doing at the point was stunning, and it was excellent. People forget that just because that this show had a very disappointing ending, in my opinion, that it did for the majority of Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones is one of the best TV shows ever made, period, in my opinion. Without dispute. It's up there with Sopranos. I think it's better than Sopranos. I think it's better than 6 Feet Under. I think it's better than Leftovers, which I thought good. Watchmen, I would need more episodes. I think Watchmen is great, but I only had 9 episodes. But for series that ran, and ended their run, Game of Thrones to me is a gold standard for storytelling in that genre. And HBO. It's just, they have just done a good job keeping you compelled, keeping you ready, keeping you concerned about who's going to live or die. I mean, after the 4th season, where those of you who hadn't read the books, you just didn't know who was going to live and die. Everybody, and obviously they, killed characters and brought them back to life. And then certain characters or turned evil that, were rushed. But from everything I'm hearing, House of the Dragon is stunning. And I cannot wait to get back on the air tomorrow as soon as it's over. 15 minutes after it's over, we're going to be on the air, and we're going to be talking Game of Thrones. We're going to be talking House of Dragons. We're going to be going character by character to the point where, because a lot of these characters are new. And for those of you who are going to have a lot of questions tomorrow, or have questions now or in the future and want to message me or whatever, I do not mind answering your questions ad nauseum about Game of Thrones or any of these things that were written about Sandman. None of these characters. When it comes to these characters, I want you on board. There's no such thing as a stupid Game of Thrones question, to be honest with you. If there's something you don't know about Game of Thrones and you're on the fence about watching any of these things that we talk about, feel free to ask me, because I am all about talking Game of Thrones and exploring the rich history that is Game of Thrones. Who I think is going to be the ultimate asshole character, who I think is going to be the sympathetic character. I think, like I said last week, I think that my 11th Doctor is going to be pretty much an asshole for this series, and like I said, there's all kinds of stuff on the website that you could there's avatars and stuff you can download. But yeah, and it starts out, one thing I do know that it starts out is it's 187 years before. There's a postscript or script that writes, and like preamble says 187 years or 183 years before the birth of Daenerys Targaryen. So right then they're making that connection. There are things in the show that you obviously see that the dagger that Arya uses to kill a certain character. Spoiler alert! It's been 1,000 days. That dagger plays prominently. You've heard a lot about Valyrian steel, Valyrian, all this and that, and Dragonstone. You're going to see these things in motion. A lot of the ancient relics that if you did watch the show, that you saw the ancient locations that were abandoned, you're going to see them full of life in this show. So I'm really looking forward to it. Real, I like to. Yeah, I need to get Ray on this show. Just like I said, just to have somebody giggly and happily always on my show. I need to get Belle Rev too. I'll have to do a 7-second delay because she drops a lot of F-bombs. But cool. Okay, so you raised $200. Hey, that's great. We need to. I think every streamer that has a platform like this should spend a percentage of their time raising money and bringing awareness. It's not just money too. In certain situations, it's awareness. Like when we did our thing for suicide prevention, when we had AFSAP on here, and we had the local chapters, and we had the national chapters get involved, and we gave away signed Alec Ross stuff. Sometimes it's not just money. Money helps keeps their phone banks open and keeps people who are volunteers being able to get gas going back and forth, and it keeps resources and internet up, and because these are resources that they may need to save a life. But it's the awareness that it spreads. When we do streams like this, like what you did today, you're bringing up the awareness of what people are going through. We take for granted when we pass people every day that, we don't realize that everybody is fighting their own separate battle, whether it's depression, a disease, stress, money issues. Everybody's fighting their own war just to stand upright and get out of bed every morning. So sometimes, even if we can't raise money, just bringing awareness, like the suicide, I almost said suicide squad. Sorry. The suicide prevention one we did, I had the professional come on and basically what symptoms should we be looking for in the everyday people that we meet? At what kind of intervention can we do? And when is it time to go get help? What are the resources? We have the resources on the screen. And but when it comes to cancer, I don't know a person in my family or in my friendship circles or online anywhere that has not been touched by cancer or someone with cancer or losing someone with cancer. I've lost several friends this year to cancer. One guy got my landlord that owned this plaza, cool dude, Ron McMenemy, was diagnosed and within a month after being diagnosed, he was gone. Stomach cancer. 10 months after losing his wife. 10 months. So I had friends that lost both of their parents within a 10-month period. My mom's a survivor. So the cancer thing is, who knows if they'll find a cure for it. But if they can make cancer survivable, to increase the survivability rate of cancer, dude, that's a win right there. Look at HIV. I remember as a kid, and some of you youngsters in here will make fun of me for being old. You got HIV, you died. All right. When you got AIDS, you were dead. But because of things like what Raya did and what a lot of people do as far as fundraising efforts, as far as getting the word out there, as awareness goes, you still don't want to get HIV. You still don't want to get AIDS. You're obviously better off without it. But the medication, the advancements, and the availability of all that medication has made it to where your life expectancy is undetermined. Whereas before, back in the day, you got it. Unless you were Magic Johnson, you were done. I remember because back then we didn't have the news, we didn't have the internet. So a lot of times you found out someone had it, and as they were dying, I found out that Freddie Mercury had it right before he passed away. Eazy-E diagnosed 3 weeks later. Eazy-E, NWA, straight out of Compton, 35 years old, dead within 3 weeks. And and when I was growing up, it was a stigma. You didn't talk about it. There was no awareness, and it was considered a gay disease. So people just figured, we don't have to talk about it. I'm not, but it wasn't. And as 25 million people were infected over that course of time, then it became something we had to talk about. But once again, HIV shows you when you have awareness and you're raising money, you can make these things livable. It doesn't have to be a death sentence. So another one is ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease. One of the biggest inspirations of me as a sci-fi geek is Dr. Stephen Hawkins. All right. just recently passed a few years back at 77 years old, but he dealt with LAS for 40 years. There are people who are able-bodied that fight to get up out of bed in the morning and live their lives just because they may or may not have a bad day, and they may not even be depression-driven. This guy, in his condition, his immobilized condition, found a spark to get up for 40 years after being diagnosed with that disease and never gave up trying to find a cure till his dying day. Not only did he not give up to finding a cure, he never gave up on life. So when it comes to fundraising, I'm going to start doing more and more with it as I get settled in, as I get the cool equipment I want. Like I said, we're on different cameras now. As you can see, there's the microphone, there's different lighting, different situation here because this reflects differently. But as we get our dual studios put up, I'm going to do a lot more of that stuff. So that kind of stuff is important to me. Like I said, I am a geek by nature, but geeks are humans too. We know people that have all these ailments. So, all right. So let's see who we going here. All right. Hey William, what's the indie comic that you would like to see a live action? For me, it'll be Youngblood by Rob Liefeld. The Max. Youngblood by Rob Liefeld would be great, but when we, I think me and Thay were talking about this last week, the Max. I would love to see the Max done in real life. There are certain aspects of that thing, especially now that I've seen a Sam Keith work in motion with the Sandman. The Max is a very visual, very abstract, very imaginary driven, state of mind driven medium. It's a comic that Image created back in the early 90s, and it was on MTV's Liquid Television. That's where it really gained its following. And the comic was great. The cartoon, which used Sam Keith's animation, was better. And I know if they made the next step up with the Max, if they can do anything like they did with the Sandman, the Max could surpass it as far as quality goes. So to answer your question, that would be the Max. All right. So yeah, Critical Care. Yeah, Critical Care. We have Critical Care out here. Critical Care. They dress up, they cosplay, they go to children's hospitals. And that's another thing. I donate personally to St. Jude's and all these other ones. I encourage everyone to do that because, like I said, it all makes a difference. And there's no such thing as a small donation. There's no such thing as a small donation. It all goes to a good place. All right, let's see. Okay. Let me answer that question. Is House dropping? No. Just like somebody said in the chat, HBO doesn't do that. HBO is prime time. They're about prime time because they're competing with primetime network TV. So they put their stuff on. So House of the Dragon will debut 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. on the West Coast, where I'll be. So 6 p.m. I will be sitting with a crowd of people doing a countdown, ending our 1,100, and which will be tomorrow, 90-day wait till the last time that we felt the fire. So it'll be on at 6 o'clock on HBO Max and HBO simultaneously simulcast. So yeah, they don't do the midnight thing. They want people watching this in places where they can get that arena feel. And when you do the midnight drop thing, yeah, unless you're hanging out, in places like that, you don't see a lot of people doing that kind of event atmosphere when it's midnight. I mean, when we're, especially for something that's not binge watchable like this, you gotta wait. There's no choice. So let me bring in Late Ass Stayed. Hey, what's going on, man?
Hey, what's up, buddy?
Yeah,
So
we're just going over some stuff.
that's not going to be overnight tonight. Then it's tomorrow night.
What's that?
House of the Dragon.
Now, House of Dragon is 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Pacific or Eastern. So 3-hour time difference. So that's going to air across the world. So HBO Max will crash tomorrow. You heard it here first. Do not worry when you tune in to House of the Dragon and you're dealing with stuttering issues and you get that offline thing like you got with Zack Snyder's Justice League. If you watched it at midnight when it first came out at 6 p.m., wherever you're at in the world, unless you were really lucky, the 150 million or whoever is watching this show are going to crash HBO's servers. So expect that, but don't worry. They're working on it. Don't call your cable company. There's nothing they could do. Don't be emailing HBO. They know about it. And I hope that since the 1,190 days since the last time that we've had this show on the air, that they have expanded their servers as they've expanded HBO Max, and we don't have, now that you have a hot ass series that might crash your servers. So hopefully, knock on wood, that they fix that. And if they fix it, then you won't have that. But if it's the same old business as usual, expect some pausing. Expect you might have to wait 10, 15 minutes to get on, especially for episode 1. Episode 1 and then like the season finale, or unless word gets out that somebody's going to get killed or dying, and then everybody jams up the servers. But for the most part, that first viewing, we used to do viewings every hour because we could only fit so many people in our place. So what we would do is I have 2 entrances in the center. You would start out with the first screening at 6 o'clock. And then after that screening was over, we had the back exit. So the people who are currently in here, we escorted them out the back entrance, and we would have a line waiting in the front here for the next showing at 7. But we didn't want, if you've ever been to the center, it's upstairs and has staircases on either side. So we would send the people who just watched the show down one direction, and we would have the people that were waiting in the line outside come up this way. That way they didn't cross up, and they wouldn't spoil it for the person. So that if somebody died or if there was a big death in the scene or something pivotal will happen, the people who had just seen it were going in a different direction than the people. And we always made sure we got them in and seated as soon as possible so that they couldn't hear somebody in the parking lot, spoiling it for them, because that's the way it would happen. And then we would keep doing it and till 9 o'clock. In Vegas, many of the hotels did not have, still don't have certain cable channels. HBO is one of them. So all day long, we'll get Sunday, hey, you guys showing Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones is only a couple of locations that's showing it. Us and another location. So we get the Ubers, we get the taxi drivers, and they come watch it. And but this time we are doing it at a place called the Square Bar, which is in our plaza, which has plenty of capacity, plenty of TVs. We should be able to get this all done in one sitting, hopefully. And I hope so, because I'm going to do a spoiler review right there in front of the screen. In front of our Iron Throne right after it. So if there's people coming in that haven't seen it, it's going to be a problem. So hopefully you all get to see it with us in Vegas. If you get out to Vegas, come out and see it with our crowd. Like I said, we'll have an Iron Throne there that you can sit. Usually we have I have a big wooden chair that I just threw a green screen over. And what the tourists would do, they would come in and sit in it. And then I would post their pictures on our Instagram or Facebook, and then they could download themselves sitting in the Iron Throne. This time I've actually built an Iron Throne. It looks cheesy, but it's fun. Everything we do is cheesy. All right. Oh my God, yes, Death was sweet and gentle. Me and my mom was in awe in the interpretation of death. She was just like understanding. Yeah. And she made her whole point in that first half of that episode was not just her acceptance and understanding of her role, but making him understand it, because he seemed like he was lost, and he came to talk to her because he was lost, sitting there feeding the pigeons, So yeah, let's see. Rational Skeptic, nice to see you again, William. Are you hyped for the? No, not. And listen, nothing against the Elder Scrolls. It's just never been my thing. It's kind of Lord of the Rings. Somebody jumped on me last week because I was we were making fun of Lord of the Rings, and we were like, they're like, Lord of the Rings not being your thing is one thing, but you dissing it. Listen, guys, it's all in fun. It's a joke. I prefer Game of Thrones over any of this period type or any of this genre of storytelling. To me, it is superior than Lord of the Rings, Tolkien period.
Well, with the exception of the dragons, it's more realistic.
Yeah, and it's along my lines. But if you like Lord of the Rings, that's fine. It's a joke, dude. Do not take, maybe I should put that rolling disclaimer. Do not take what we do on this show that serious. Right?
Yeah.
It's not that serious.
It's a joke, people. It's a joke.
Me knocking Lord of the Rings is fun. I know plenty of people come in here that love Lord of the Rings, want me to screen it here, and we promote, all kinds of stuff, Lord of the Rings. Not my cup of tea, and I make fun of it because I'm here to have fun. In the ban list, okay, a couple other weeks ago, we had the ban list on there, and people started taking that seriously. The fact that I have a ban list on a YouTube stream shows you the utter ridiculousness of what I'm doing. It's literally to start the conversation, because what do we do when we list something on the ban list? We immediately start talking about it. So how
exactly.
So, guys, I know there are certain YouTube shows that take things with a nice edge. I'm not one of them. I'm in on the joke. I'm here to laugh at myself and everything around me. So don't be messaging me telling me, I can't believe you're a hater. No, I'm just having fun. Listen, I don't hate things to the point where it would ever cause me that much discomfort. You know what I do when I don't like something? I just don't watch it. That's what I do. Now,
Bingo.
Elder Scrolls, I don't know a lot about Elder Scrolls. I know a lot of people that I know like it. I have never gotten into Elder Scrolls. A lot of it is because it just wasn't my thing. And I even if I did try to get around to it, I'm so backed up. I'm years behind on streaming. I have put things like the Sandman and Stranger Things in front of things that I've had sit in my queue for a year or two now, and I'm awful. So the likelihood of me getting around to Elder Scrolls is not high, but not impossible. And Rational, if I get around to it, I will definitely review it. We'll definitely, see about, get my
Now,
point of view about it. And
now
obviously,
for
if you guys watch it, you want to talk about it, then cool. So I feel like Hot D is flying under the radar for normies. Yeah, I think. Listen, dude, this show better than it looks as violent as it needs to be. It looks
God,
like
yeah.
all the elements of Game of Thrones are there, and I know this story. This story has been told by someone else inside the story. So basically, we know how this ends. But there was an article that the director put out and said, not so fast. There are going to be some changes simply because by the time you're hearing about what this era of Targaryens, you're hearing it second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th hand. And you know
It's
it
legend.
happens. It's like Greek mythology. We got so
Yeah.
far into Greek mythology and so far away from Greek mythology, we didn't know what the hell was real, what was a perceived god or not, or who existed or not. King Arthur, things like that. There's people out there trying to prove King Arthur still exists or was existing. Certain people, as many people saying that it didn't, it was a myth. But when you get lost in time like that, just in our own real reality, the myth and what could have happened. So my hope is that people that have died in the story that I know, they switch it up, because even though I'm going to enjoy the show, throw me a curveball, man. If there's a character that you've written that's dead and he doesn't die, wow. Or a person that does die that didn't die, you don't have to go word for word, in my opinion. All I want you to do is give me the spirit of the concept that you're doing. I understand that these characters are loosely based on the ones you created. And I'm good with that. You don't have to. This is one geek that you don't have to follow it verbatim. It's cool if you can, where it applies. But if you got a guy like me that, you want to show some people just spill it and spoil it for people. Oh, that person dies in the end. Oh, well, fuck you. But hey, why don't you switch it up and put us all in the dark? I love finding out about things the same time as the people around me are. That's fun. It's like watching a live sporting event. So I'm looking forward to them throwing me some curveballs about that. All right. GOT was a nice little burn. I love shows that gradually build without boring you. Yeah, that first season, though, was a tough watch for me. The first, when Ned gets executed, that's where it wow, holy shit. That's where that show really took off.
That first season's a little slow.
Yeah.
A little slower than I like. And I actually do like the slow burn, Ange. But that first season was a little tough to get through. But then, like William says, it ramps up there at the end with Ned getting the chop, and it just keeps going up from there.
Yeah, that starts the War of the Five Kings. That starts everything. That is the catalyst. All right, Silent Scotty. What's up? I just got a chance to meet Silent Scotty last week. I posted the pictures of the show last week. So a lot taller than I thought he would be. But then again, I only see him on the TV screen. I'm working on getting him an actual Cylon helmet. So, whenever he shows up on the stream again, he'll have just Cylon and the sound and the Imperious leader. William, in your opinion, what is the most underutilized character in Game of Thrones? Ooh.
I've got an answer for that.
Wow. You can answer first. I got to think.
Aemon Targaryen.
Yeah, given his backstory, they could have done more with him. That's a tough one, dude. How'd you spring that one on me?
In the show, Well, in the show versus the book, the King in the North is a little less focused on in the show than in the book. Mance Rayder, and I like him.
Oh, the King Beyond the Wall.
Yeah, the King Beyond the Wall.
Yeah, I loved his character for the brief time. I would. Whoa, man. I would say Rose Leslie's character. You agree?
Oh, definitely, very underutilized.
I love the progression because this whole show to me was about John Targaryen. John Targaryen. Phew, don't get me started on the way they fucked that up. The whole show was about the progression of him and him breaking his vow, him, finally, and he eventually married that woman, by the way, Rose Leslie, and had a baby. Congratulations there. But the evolution of his character becoming the bastard, going and becoming a high-ranking guy in the Night's Watch, falling in love with her, and then having to go to war with the wildlings, and then uniting with the wildlings to fight the White Walkers. His evolution was the best, but that character was a big part of his evolution, and we just didn't get enough of her. The story just did not allow for them to fall in love, and his obviously his story arc with Dany would not have been possible, but it made. It evolved his character to the point where he could accept love with her.
I've got one more character that I think is underutilized. Sansa.
No, fuck her. She was used too much, especially in it. You say Sansa? Sansa Stark?
Sansa, yeah.
Sansa? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, Sansa.
No. Not only was she was overused, and I'm sorry, I just didn't find her compelling, even to the point where she takes out Ramsay Bolton. Spoiler alert. Sorry.
Spoiler alert for a 9-year-old show.
Yeah, I just didn't feel a hatred as I did. But when John was beating the shit out of him, I felt that.
I'm talking about like her verse in the book versus the show.
Oh man, okay. There's
and the character, the actress. Now, I have to say, I'm not a real fan of the actress that played Sansa Stark.
Sophie Turner.
Yeah, I mean, two characters that I cared to see her play, she didn't play very well. So.
Oh yeah, well that's the X-Men one was kind of brutal, but yeah, the part about comparing the ones in the books, people you got to realize, those of you who have not written the books, I don't think you need to. They are boring. I
love the books, but that's beside the point.
They're told from a point of view perspective that drives me crazy.
You don't like the point of view hopping?
I hate that. And it's always a point of view of characters that I don't care about. I don't care about this character's point of view. I don't care about you juxtaposing what you're seeing to your lousy life. I don't care. Even if I care about you as a character in the show, reading from a point of view is nauseating. Now there's certain characters when they're describing Rhaegar and they're describing this, the sack of King's Landing and all that, because that's stuff that's how you would have told it. But when they're in real time and they're describing things from their point of view, I'm like, I would rather eat this book than continue reading it. But I finished. But when you watch the show, it's not told from thank God that they didn't do that, to be honest with you, because that was an option for them to be able to tell that show from a point of view like they did in the books. Thank you, whoever made that decision not to do that, because I probably wouldn't be sitting here as big a fan of Game of Thrones. Ugh, I hated the storytelling format of that. All right, so yes, everybody who gets a chance, come to the post show stream. I'm gonna have a lot of fun.
Most definitely be there and probably on screen with you. So
yeah, I'm gonna have a lot of fun. Just listen, everything I do, I made it a New Year's resolution, and we ain't even near the New Year yet. If I'm not having fun, fuck it, not gonna do it. All right, and Game of Thrones is fun for me. I'm not doing one thing, even this cheesy styrofoam throne that I'm making that you guys can feel free to laugh at once it's done. I think it's kind of cool. I'm having fun. All these TV shows that are on the air right now, these comic book shows, I know there's been contention about how certain things come out, how certain things look. Even in all that, I am having fun with that because, folks, it is not that serious. none of the stuff that we talk about is that serious.
That serious. No, not
Yeah.
at all.
So
I do agree
Ryan,
with something that Ange said down here at the bottom. They should have utilized Lady Stoneheart in Game of Thrones.
I hear that every day amongst my throne heads.
She was an awesome character in the books, anyway. And it would have added just a little bit more of an element of horror, I think.
I sort of agree with that, but I understand why they didn't.
Oh, I get it too. I mean, I get it. It was just too much going on.
Well, not only that, okay, the show, even though this is going to be the biggest difference between House of the Dragon and Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones was basically a pre-medieval thing that was basically, for all intents and purposes, the same way it would be if you were telling a real life story without magic, for the most part.
Yeah.
With the exception of the very first scene that you see, which is the White Walkers and the dragons. Those two elements and some other, but everything else is based on the two cruxes of the story. They were balancing the realism of the family dynamic, the real life and death dynamic, with horror elements that were already there. Adding her would have, at that point, pushed, in my opinion, pushed the show over the top. Whereas the other elements, the horror elements, were things that the entire show, the White Walkers were the very first thing you saw in Game of Thrones. The very first things you saw. Very first scene is those guys going beyond the wall and getting slaughtered, and then him executing that guy for deserting, and hey, he owes him an apology. So, but it was a slow build. It was in episode 1, and the White Walkers were elements throughout, but they were what you were going for, the long winter and everything else. Same thing with the dragons. The dragons were literally, you watched them grow throughout the show. So they didn't become overwhelming elements at any point until towards the end. Everything else is just basically real life storytelling, as much as you can be real in that type of setting. House of the Dragon is different. You're starting out with magic because dragons are magic. You're starting out with 17 dragons. You're starting out with some stuff that the other show built in. I think adding Lady Stoneheart, I could argue both ways. I could see why they didn't, but I don't know if she would have hurt.
Well, I could actually see it also from a pragmatic level. Like you said, the magic was in the White Walkers, the magic was in the dragons, in Dany's dragons. Further than that, they were telling a human story. And Lady Stoneheart, though I loved her in the books, would have kind of cheapened the Red Wedding death scenes if just a few episodes later she pops back up, even in her undead form.
Plus, there are people that she takes out in the book that needed to be taken out by other characters in the story to progress their characters. And True. I thought it worked out better for that one. Okay, so technically I can't answer this. Spoiler. If they keep it like they've done in the books, if they decide to go otherwise, I would applaud them for it. But I cannot answer this question because I know who gets the throne. I know how this ends.
Yep.
Hey, Game of Thrones guys, House of Dragons, fool me. Switch it up. Make me look dumb for thinking I know how it ends. Throw me a bone. Switch something up. Kill this person instead of that person. Kill that dragon instead of this dragon. I don't mind. This sucks knowing how this ends. I mean, I'm still going to enjoy this show more than words. But
look, as long as it has the 3 Ds in it, I'm good. Death, dismemberment, destruction.
In the first episode, by the way.
Death, dismemberment, destruction. That's all I need.
I'm gonna build a drop for that so people can see. But yeah, I would love not to know how this ends, but I do because it's been foretold. If you know the other stories, these things come up. Just like how the conquest ends, and Aegon's conquest when he takes over the 3 dragons. Him and his sister wives take over, and they go from dragons. How that ends. Just like how the sack of King's Landing, there are certain elements in the books that have already been written that are done. This is one of them. So if you don't want me to spoil it, then I can't answer that question. One of these days we'll have like a private something where I can just go spoiler away. But a majority of the people I haven't read these books, and the majority of the people, the vast majority of people who watch Game of Thrones will never read the books. And someone telling you somebody who read them all, you're A-okay. You are not missing shit. Watch the show, enjoy the show, read those books. If you need to prop up your hand sanitizer or your phone or something on that, that is what those books are good for. I love the story. I just hate the way that it's told and the way certain things drag. And that's just me. The books are, people love these books. I sell them here. People love these books, and more power to you. This guy, I just hated the way the narrative was told, and I don't think it's necessary. And I know it's not necessary because this is one of the most popular shows of all time. And like I said, out of the hundreds and hundreds of millions of people that have watched it, I guarantee you 90% of the people have not watched and will never. Some of the people calling me about the show today didn't even know that they were books until they came in and saw one of my books. I had a display with all the books. All the books are sitting in a little tower area. And so they are like, oh, these are books based on the show? Are these the same? No, the other way around. And then he doesn't help by taking forever to finish his final chapters. George R.R. Martin, dude, you act like you're in your 20s, man, pick it up.
Let me answer something here that Rational Skeptic's saying real quick. No, I just checked several different sites. It's all saying tomorrow, like William said. So no, it's not going to be 3 a.m.
Yeah, trust me, guys. I've been doing this Game of Thrones things forever. There is a reason why they do it at that time. They want that demographic that is watching TV, even though it is a show that will stream afterwards. HBO is still a network that has primetime shows. It's a cable network, and HBO Max is an extension of that network. They are still competing for Nielsen's for that particular demographic. It's different than Netflix that just dropped something. They are competing with Sunday Night Football. They are competing with NBA. They are competing with that same 18 to 45 demographic, if not higher. They want you watching at that concentrated time, because the more people that are watching all over the world at that concentrated time, those stockholders are like, wow, we got something. And then, those investors, and then, they can be like, because it's a very expensive show to make. And by the way, the show being pirated, HBO Max doesn't care about that. They care about that stock going up from the hype of their show. Yep. More people watch that show than pirate it. All right. Yeah, I know there's a significant amount of pirating going on. More people legally watch Game of Thrones than any of the pirating can ever make a significant counterpart to. Yeah. Unless, like I said, fingers crossed. Maybe in the 1,190 days since the last episode of Game of Thrones, they may have fixed some things. But if the servers are stinking like they did last time, yes. Don't go punching your neighbor. Don't go putting holes in the wall.
Just give it some time.
Don't go running out of your house and randomly attacking somebody because there's a delay and you can't get on. You and hundreds of thousands of people will be in the same canoe. My advice to you is just keep waiting. Usually about 15 minutes. If it does crash or if it does get bogged down, it only takes about 15 minutes. And as you get deeper into the stream, and this is why a lot of times we would start our live streams, even though HBO would start it at 6:00, we would start our live streams, or our not live streams, we would do our live showings here later on, because what ends up happening as the show gets closer to its finish, the hour, more people around the world are dropping off. And they're putting less and less stress. So as you get into the show, if you're 15, 20 minutes behind, less and less stress is being put on the server. So now you don't have all the stagnation. That's what hopefully, like I said, 2019 was like, 20 years ago, it seems like. So we've got better technology then. So HBO, I know you're watching. I know the execs at HBO are watching this show because that's what you're doing on a Saturday night. You're probably watching it from your private jet. People will be looking for you. It's okay if you crash. Your ass better come back up. People will understand crashing. But as long as it comes back up, it's all good. So, yeah, expect to crash. But, hey, maybe I'll be surprised. Pleasant surprise. Okay, so let's see. Yes. I read all the earlier stuff by Mike Grell.
The Grendel stuff was really cool.
Dude, Grendel in the 90s?
Oh, yeah.
and the artwork style in the 90s.
Oh, dude, I found. Speaking of that style of comics, I actually found a copy of Batman versus Spawn for like $30.
Wow. Yeah, be like Cylon Scotty and RJ. They've come out here and we take pictures. I give them a tour of my my little attic here in the sky. And like I said, one of these days, like I said, once we get all the cameras set up and I can switch, I got a device. I'm so excited about this device. I saw it on the John Campion show where he's got the buttons on it, right? And so I'm eventually going to have screens like right here. So let me do this real quick so you guys can see. Like right up there, there's a big screen, and usually it has a show on it. It can have the show on it, and eventually I can do shows at the different angles. But for right now, I'm doing it at the angle that we're looking at it right now. Eventually, I'll have all these cameras set up. Like right now, I'm not using my laptop camera. I'm using a camera on a tripod for the first time. So that's why I look a little bit different. You see a little bit more of me. The lighting is a little bit off simply because I have things sitting around me that are reflecting light. But eventually, he's got this thing that I can hook everything up together, and all I got to do is push a button. So if
Just
I want
switch
to
the cameras.
yeah, so if I want to go like tomorrow, I'm going to be able to. I'll have to do it manually, but I'm going to have the camera on the studio audience, talking to them about the show all in our live stream. So I'll have this camera on a tripod facing that way, and the regular one facing me, so that we can go. But he does it. He's got a little thing that it sits right up here, and he just pushes a button. And if he wants to turn the TV on and switch to that image, he pushes that button. If he wants to switch to camera 1, 2, or 3, he can push each button, and it's just easy. You're just pushing buttons, and I can do it without having to fiddle fart around. Especially for somebody like me, the more I fiddle fart around, the more I fuck things up. So yeah, I can't wait to get that in there. But yeah, come down to the store. But yeah, eventually when I get better camera angles, what I want to do is I want to be able to switch to a mobile camera like he did on his show and show people around. We did it one time on I think I was on Brian's Brian Master of None stream, and they wanted to know what kind of stuff I sold. But I was on my phone. What I did is I got out of the stream and I got on my phone and we walked around the store. I walked him into the Star Trek area. We have a Star Trek area with all the books and stuff, all the novels from Star Trek, all the technical manuals from Star Trek, all the models for each version of the Enterprise are sitting in succession. There's an area around the front where each uniform is, from TOS all the way up until Picard era and whatever, Discovery era. We have comm badges, we have buttons, we have all the rank insignias. I have the Wrath of Khan jacket, the big red jacket with the Admiral's pins. All the pins are on there. I have all the pins for all the uniforms. We have phasers here. We have mice that look like Type 2 phasers. We have tricorders. And we just took them around, and then we went into the As Seen on TV section, which is a section that we set up basically to get the people. The majority of the people that are going to walk into a store, especially in the tourist district where I am, are never have going to picked up a comic book. They're going to know who these characters are from Disney Plus, HBO Max, the movies, the cartoons, and all those things. That's how they're most likely going to get introduced into these characters. But my goal is to get them walking out with paper. I want to bridge that gap in between what they're seeing in these movie theaters and watching on these streaming networks to the IPs that originated them. I'm getting a lot of people in for Sandman because we got a classic bookstore downstairs, and a lot of those guys that are in that demographic that are into that stuff come up here and they see the Sandman books and they watch the show and they're like, and then I get to turn them on to the Endless. I get to turn them on to Dream Country. I get to turn them on to Death, High Cost of Living. So that's my favorite things too. So we have a section that just does that literally has everything in there to bridge the gap in between somebody who's watching TV and wants to get into comics and vice versa, because we also have media in there as well. And there's a TV in that area that just has me talking about, like, explaining things in detail. What's the difference between a Celestial and the Eternals in the movie and the ones that are historically in the comics, and vice versa, all that kind of stuff. Eventually, the As Seen on TV will actually be a part of my streaming thing, because we're filming them and airing them in the store right now for customers to stand there and look at. But eventually, I'm going to add them to my own YouTube channel. They're 5-10 minute spots that can literally mean the difference in between somebody getting into comics or not. Because right now, like I said, between video games, movies, and pop culture, they know who Iron Man is. They know who Spider-Man is, but they don't make that connection to the paper, the comics and all the other medium. And I would love for them. I think it would enhance their world. It would help the comic book industry, but it would also enhance their world that they're already in. So when I get if you guys can't get down to Vegas, I will eventually set up a tour with one of the cameras, and we will go in detail, brick by brick, piece by piece, button by button, as long as until you guys tell me stop.
Well,
Okay.
what we need to do eventually, William, is like I've been saying, like we've talked about before, getting with Enosh and just setting up one of those, because a lot of other channels that have big followings, do the meet and greet nights.
Yeah.
We should really set up our own like lounge chat or lounge hangout or something like that.
Yeah. I'm all about growing this community. Like I said, I'm gonna have to give it a shot. I never thought that they were aiming at me with that, but like I said, a lot of it when it comes to Elder Scrolls and things like it is just time to invest in it. Like I said, I'm cheating on my streaming catalog. If I were able to show you what I have in my queue on Amazon and all these shows, I have shows from literally 2016.
Dude, William, I've got all the streaming services, and every one of them has a queue that I'm slowly working through. So I feel you, man.
Yeah, it's let's see. Well, damn, I guess by my slow self. Let's see. I wish they would have had Lady Stoner. Okay, we already adjusted that. Oh my god, she's freaking frightening. Like I said, there was enough frightening elements in that show. Let's go down to all right, William. People are saying House of Dragon drops at 3 a.m. tonight on HBO Max. It better not. Like I said, it doesn't. If you actually go to, I'm actually on HBO's site, and let's see. Let me show you. I wish I could play some of this stuff without getting a copyright strike. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that would make life easier.
I could call somebody because we promote. We work with Warner Brothers and we work with their meetings all the time. I think I wonder if I can send an email because some of the stuff I want to be able to show during our shows, but not just actually I'm on HBO Max now. So hold on. Are we sharing that? So let me look in here real quick. I know the answer to this question, but hey, I could be wrong. So I want to make sure that we are right. I'm like I said, it's
Yeah, I saw like 4 different sites that are saying what you said, so
yeah, but
I just did a quick look up on it.
How would suck if in 3 hours that shit on the air. I'm like, oh, we're not gonna let anybody know. House of the Dragon.
Yeah, IGN says tomorrow night at 9 p.m. Eastern.
Wow, HBO. If you have HBO Max, by the way, go and look at these little featurettes that they have. They're kick ass, man. All the character files.
Tom's Guide says tomorrow night at 9.
Yeah, 9 Eastern. Yeah, so HBO Max, 9 Eastern, 6 Pacific.
Yeah.
So we'll be watching it. We'll be watching it live as it airs. And that's pretty much every HBO that they want that 9 o'clock time slot. Rarely do they, like I said, and they replace it with one thing or another. Like Sopranos was always at 9 o'clock. So yeah, it is tomorrow, 9 o'clock Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, and I'm there, man. I'm there. We're going to watch the hell out of the show, and then we're going to break it down, and we're going to talk about it. And like I said, tomorrow there are no dumb questions. Tomorrow. There are no. I didn't know that they could do that or what. No, I'll answer them because I think it's important. I think it's important when we get to this this level of fandom for us, those of us who have watched it forever, to be willing to explain these things, and not just in House of Dragon, anything. If you are hardcore into Star Trek, comic books, no matter what it is, and somebody comes along and they show even an inkling of interest in it, I think it is your responsibility. I definitely feel it's my responsibility to show them a way if I can. I mean, you can change that person's life by introducing them to a show like this. You know what I mean? And here's my flyer. The place is a Square Bar. If you ever come to Vegas, come to the Square Bar. Their food is great. It's a 70s themed bar. They got TVs everywhere. We're putting in a 20-foot screen tomorrow for Game of Thrones. So we'll be watching it on a movie type screen with surround sound. And I legit, well, once you guys, if you go back to the beginning of the stream, to see my cheesy throne, that'll be there for people to take pictures on. It'll look cooler in person and on a picture than it does. But yeah, this is where we'll be at every Sunday until October 23rd. This is the last Sunday. Last Sunday was the last Sunday that you will have to endure without Game of Thrones until October 27th. Actually, October 30th. That is the first Sunday after tomorrow that you will have to brace yourself for a Sunday without Game of Thrones. Until then, it is 10 consecutive weekends of fire, blood, beheadings, stabbings, women fighting each other over the throne because there's two paramount characters that are basically make up two sides of this whole story. I guess I can't wait. I can't wait to, and this, the better the show does, then we're going to get other spinoffs. So we're going to get other things. People want to hear about the conquest. I don't mind hearing about the Aegon's conquest as long as you put it into another story. Like give me like the Godfather 2 where you gave me another story and then you told past and flashbacks. I don't know if I want a whole series based on that because that, even though we've never seen that story has been told over and over and over and over again through so many people's minds, but I'll watch it. If you tell me that that's next, guess what? My ass will be right there. Okay. I have the leather books of Game of Thrones and the regular ones. House of the Dragons just sitting there for my family and friends to read. And they just, you know what? I might agree with them simply because they're about to embark on a journey in those books. If they stick to the books, then they're going to be spoiled. It's a spoiler. Like I said, the books tell you who wins this battle, who wins this civil war between the two Targaryen sides. You know who wins, and you know who ultimately at the end of all of it takes the throne. If they keep it accurate to the books, I hope they don't. But just to say that they do, I would recommend if you don't want to have the show spoiled for you, don't read that section of I think it was what was it? Dance of Dragons is a book that it was in.
Yep.
Yeah, don't read that. If you don't mind, then read it, but don't spoil it for the people who haven't read it though. So I'm on the fence. On that one. All right. So Anthony Beltre, it's all trash, ain't it? No, I'm just kidding you. All right, so guys, stay away from the internet. That first episode leaked on Potlucker and a bunch of pirate sites, and people are already spoiling it. Listen, this is going to be probably the hardest show to spoil, given the nature of the show. And I'm not just talking about for people who have read the books. The premise of the show spoils itself in a way. Simply because of what the show is about, right? We already know going into this without knowing nothing, just watching the trailers and just knowing what the synopsis of the show is. We already know that it is about the fight for a throne, right? The fight over a vacated throne. We know that much, right? Right? So we know somebody's got to die, and I pretty much know that there's only one guy inhabiting the throne right now. So we know one guy is gone. Okay, you don't even need to read the books. That's not a spoiler alert. That is already, it is a battle, and they tell you war it is. And the fact that they're fighting over the heir to the throne, they already, yeah. Okay, and then you know that there are sides taken and that there are certain people that are going to be fighting on one side and the other. The trailers give away one side already. So they're not really, they've gotten to the point where they're not trying to hide what they're doing. they're just trying to make it, once you see it, to make it as quality as possible. I don't think there's any. I don't think reading it will spoil it for you. I don't think knowing what happens will spoil it for you, because there was times during the original run of Game of Thrones where I knew exactly what's going on. When they killed when the whole dragon thing with the Night King happened, I knew about that. All right, I knew about that. I knew who was going to win the battle between the Viper and the Mountain before the show even aired, because I knew that the episode was called that, and I already knew he died. All right, now they went differently with the way the Mountain was depicted afterwards. That was different, but for the premises of it. So when it comes to Game of Thrones, this era of it is really hard to spoil. Now, after season 4 of the original series, yeah, that's spoiler worthy stuff, because that stuff hadn't been written. But like the battle for Winterfell, when you're fighting the dead, when everybody leading up to that, they'd let you know that half of these characters are going to die and you didn't know which ones. That's something you could spoil. But the premise of Houses of Dragon, for better or for worse, kind of spoils itself, depending on what you look at it. So you will see certain things coming depending on how savvy you are, but knowing that they're coming is not going to ruin it. Seeing Matt Smith be an asshole, I don't care if I know how he turns out. I don't care how I know how his character ultimately, becomes. Seeing the Doctor, seeing Mr. TARDIS, and Daemon Targaryen, trust me, make no mistake, do not fall in love with Daemon Targaryen. Daemon Targaryen's an asshole. He's a jerk. He's a heroic jerk, but he's a jerk. And he's a ruthless jerk. And he's one of the people that's would be in line for the throne. So that even makes him more of an asshole worthy. So don't get connected to any of these characters, and none of them have any morals. There's assholes and there's bigger assholes in this show. So just figure out which one's the lesser asshole, and I guess that's who you're rooting for.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Yep, there you go. Like I said, we were just on there. I was just on HBO's side, but I didn't want to put it up on the screen, simply because I didn't want to get a copyright strike. Hey Gino, how you doing? But yeah, Game of Thrones. I can't wait, man. I can't wait. I am going to be here all night building stuff, getting stuff ready, getting the show ready. I've already got the show set up in the other StreamYards lab there, so that we know I got the background. You've already seen the background. I'm gonna, like I said, this is gonna be the first time I've done a stream where I will be doing it with a studio audience there, and you actually be able to see and interact with those studio audience, and they will be able to ask us questions. Both you and I, whoever's on that stream with us. And if I can, if they're not too nervous, I want to have one of those people sitting next to me. I want to rotate people out, and I want to hear what they thought of the show in real time. And so I want to make the connection between our YouTube world and the human world that I inhabit both. So I don't think there's too many YouTubers right now that are doing it, low end or higher end. I mean, the only one I can think of right now would be Smith. What's his face? Fat Man and Beyond.
Yeah.
And he does it at a bar, which is I will be at a bar. But this is what we do here. I mean, we get crowds together to watch stuff like this. We at a movie theater, or here at the center, or we put up a drive-in. That is one of the biggest pleasures I get out of owning this place, is that I get to put people together and watch some cool stuff. We did it. We rented out a theater. I mean, RJ was here for No Way Home. We rented out a theater for No Way Home so we could watch it before people spoiled it. Even though we all knew what the hell was going to happen. But there was a lot of people. We did it for Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. We rented out a theater so that we could watch that. When we promoted Godzilla versus Kong, we did it out here. Like I said, nothing pleases me more than bringing people together, see people who haven't met each other. Like I said before, those random encounters to me are what's missing from society. If we had them, the world would be a better place all around the world. If we did not have the luxury of just unfriending, blocking, or stomping off, and we actually had to evolve ourselves to see points of view and to see things through other people's eyes like we did back in the day, I think that fandom, definitely. I mean, we see the whole toxic fandom thing. Toxic fandom, for the most part, comes from people being a badass from behind the screen. And not just because they would get their ass kicked in person if they call people like this in person. Not just that. It's just the fact that they wouldn't have to deal with the social ramifications of destroying a friendship in person as you do when you have some guy on the screen. So getting people together for things like Game of Thrones, answering their questions, sending them off into the night with more questions that they can explore in themselves. You know, I mean, this is just the beginning. When you step into our place or when you step into what we're about to do tomorrow, this is just the beginning. Meeting me at my little geek attic is just hopefully the beginning of something, not the end. I've met people that you know, I've been in open since '95. I've met people that we turned on to things, and years and years later, they brought their kids in and they're reading those things. I remember turning on one of my fans, one of my store orders back in the '95 when the Star Wars comics were just first coming out from Dark Horse, the Knights of the Old Republic, Freedom Nad Uprising, things that you'll always hear me talk about. I would like to see on screen with Enosh. These weren't things that people were talking about, and there hadn't been a Star Wars movie, and there wasn't going to be one for another 4 years. So I got a hardcore Star Wars guy into those things, and he handed that off to his kids. His grown ass kids now are coming and telling me that their dad read that, you know, gave that to them. Some of the same books I sold that person. So hopefully, anytime you see me on your YouTube screen or you see me in person, it's just the beginning of something that you can explore long after you're done with me. So let's see. All right, guys, stay away from the internet. Yeah, you know, he told me that. So yeah, we're still going that route. But yeah, we're getting ready. We're ready. I will be exhausted tomorrow, but I will be hyped and ready for Game of Thrones. So let's there's an off topic that I wanted to bring up real quick, and it's because I saw a Collider article earlier today. And I think this is a topic that might interest the chat and us. So, and it's this: 8 best science fiction movies that aren't set in the future. With the success of Prey, which is set 300 years ago, there are movies that Collider's bringing up as far as the type of movies that take place in the past, the distant past, that people might want to take a look at. And let's see what they got. There's more Sandman. Obviously, Prey. Prey is set in 1719. Yeah, go ahead with the jokes. Yes, I was there, whatever. Prey is set in 1719. It has all the hallmarks of a modern science fiction and horror show. You didn't need any elements from 2022 or the 80s or the 90s to make this a true science fiction masterpiece that it was. It being set in 1719 actually enhanced it because it brought him down to earth as far as the type of technology he has. Remember, this is a 300-year prior Predator. So all the bells and whistles that the Predators that we know and love, this guy didn't have them yet. And his armor wasn't that great. He's not as armored up as the previous ones were. His cloaking device isn't as good as the previous. But once again, what are we going to have 300 years from now? What did we have 300 years ago? So I love the fact that it came down to a primal hunter versus prey, aptly named. The Iron Giant. Iron Giant. That was one I was surprised to see on here, but pretty shitty ending. But as far as like, you know, church, Iron Giant came out in 1999, set in 1957, setting itself over 40 years before its release. The Iron Giant expertly invokes 1950s imagery and nostalgia throughout, primarily through its best remembered being surprisingly emotional and very well made film about a young boy befriending a giant metal robot and being one of those family movies that can be enjoyed by adults and kids in equal measure. The story itself feels quite timeless and almost as though it was set during almost any time in recent history. But beyond the simple and charming plot, the retro look of the film and the 50 setting helps differentiate it visually from other animated films of its time. That's especially notable when you consider how Pixar was starting to rise to fame in the second half of the 1990s, simultaneously increasing the popularity of modern-looking CGI animation. So yeah.
I know another one, and we'll have to see if it's on this list.
All right, Frankenstein.
Set in the 1800s, probably.
Yeah, it qualifies.
And technically, it was the first science fiction story written. because it dealt with using science to resurrect the dead. So it's really not supernatural.
No. You're wrong, Sage. You're wrong.
No, I'm not.
You're wrong. What year
It's
was this released? What year was this? What year? 1931?
No, what year was it written? The book was written in the
Are you
1800s.
talking about as far as the release or you're talking about when it was actually hit the press?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought you were talking about the release of it, the first science fiction movie released.
No. Metropolis was the first.
Okay, so yeah, this book was released in what year was
1815, I believe it was.
Ooh, damn, I Mary Shelley. There's like a
Yeah.
whole dude that show about that, her writing that,
Dude, the whole story behind her writing that and being with Lord Byron and her husband, and they all bet each other to write a supernatural story.
Yeah, but did you see the one movie about it where it's like it's like an orgy? You're like, what the hell?
Yeah, it was. It was literally her and two men holed up in a castle for a weekend with bad weather outside.
And they're banging in this movie. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, they are.
Okay, and it's a true story. It's hard to work out exactly when Frankenstein's films are set. Admittedly, the first film takes its inspiration from the original novel, which is said to take place in the 1700s. But then Bride of Frankenstein comes along and implies that it's set in 1899. Naturally, there are some mismatches there. So,
yeah. That's the movie I was thinking about. That's the movie I was thinking about right there.
Yeah. Very underrated movie. Very underrated. I think it was Billy Zane.
Billy Zane.
Very underrated movie. A lot of movies got released. This got released in I'm pulling it up right now. In a hard year. Terminator 2 was released that year. There's a whole bunch of blockbusters that were released that year. Yeah. So, and it was released in the summer of 1991.
Do you remember a movie called Sky Captain?
Yeah, Sky Captain: The World Tomorrow.
Yeah.
Very disappointing. Very stunning.
Beautiful to look at. Horrible story.
Beautiful to look at, but it was poorly executed. Jude Law was in that movie.
Yep.
Kate, what's your face was that? I watched that on deployment. That came out in 2004, and I was sitting in a hangar, and I was trying to watch every movie I possibly could because we were so bored about to get deployed.
Right.
The Rocketeer, set in 1938. One of the better ones on this list. Given it takes place a little bit over 50 years before it was released, The Rocketeer is far from the most dramatic example of a science fiction film getting
Can't hear you, William. Can't hear you. Your vocals cut out. Yeah, still can't hear you, man. Hello?
How about now?
Okay, now I can hear you.
I wonder why it keeps doing that. That's annoying. I don't even know what sound I'm on now. I think I'm on the crappy computer sound. Hopefully you guys can hear me with good quality as the microphone was. There seems to be an issue with StreamYard switching my sound, trying to switch it back to the laptop audio, even though I have my same mic plugged in, and then I have that turned off, so there's no sound because I don't want to come from the laptop audio. So hopefully you can hear me. Hopefully the sound quality did not drop since I'm using the one that's came out. I really don't like that one. So okay, where were we? We were reading. Okay, so story and the pre-World War II aesthetics are essential to the film, and the fact that it involves a proto-superhero using technology to fight Nazis is what makes it memorable. Makes it so memorable. It also reflects a kind of campy, endearing entertainment that was popular during the 1930s and 40s, particularly when it came to action-packed adventure serials. Interestingly, director John Johnson went on to direct the first Captain America film in MCU in 2011, which had a similar setting and somewhat similar science fiction elements, plus Nazis as a villain. Again, you know what? I feel the Rocketeer in Captain America, the first
Oh
one.
yeah, you do definitely.
I hate this movie, but okay.
I like this movie, but teach their own.
Wild Wild West, set in 1869. One of the truly most ridiculous movies I've ever seen, but okay, here we go. May not be a particularly good film. Okay, hey.
Giant mechanical spider.
But it's one of the clearest examples of science. This is steampunk right here. Most of the clearest example of science fiction transported into a distant past. That's because it's somewhat unholy mashup of Western genre and science fiction with some action and not particularly funny comedy added to for good measure. Yeah, it's a bad movie. There is not much about that works despite a huge budget and admittedly unique blend of genre and ideas, plus an impressive cast led by Will Smith and Kevin Kline, two Academy Award winners. It's sadly a misfire, but usually Western science fiction hybrids are science fiction first with elements of Western thrown into them good measure. Think Firefly or Cowboy Bebop. It is at least interesting that Wild Wild West tackles the opposite, being Western first and foremost, and with added sci-fi elements. Okay, technically, Back to the Future trilogy should not be on this list. Yeah, it takes place in different time periods, but it is based out of where he's traveling from. Remember 1985 and 1990, that's not the past. It said partially set. Yeah, okay, sure. It's their rules. Of course, being all about time travel, Back to the Future series were surprisingly visited the past on several occasions. Much of the first movie spent in 1955 with protagonist Marty McFly getting to know his parents' generation while trying to get Back to the Future. Part two also features some scenes set in 1955 as well as going to the future of 2015. Uh, yeah, okay, that's a stretch. That's a stretch. All right, and then this one. All right, dude. Now you've gone from a stretch to just vague. We don't know when the hell Star Trek.
Cylon just gave you information in the chat that might fix your mic issue.
Hold on, I gotta get out of this. Hold on, I got some stupid thing on my. You know what I think happened? They totally rebuilt this laptop. By the way, you guys are seeing me here to start doing this because I got my laptop back today.
Oh, that's good.
And I think they reset the defaults because I was not having these problems before. Hold on, what did Scott? What's Silent Scotty say? Where's he at?
He's very last. Very last. Well,
okay, I see it. William, you're very hard to make out. You need to set your Amazon on my. I did. It's. Hold on. Let me try this again. If you lose me again, it's because
he said hit the Windows key and go to sound settings.
Yeah. That's where I'm at. Hold on. Yeah, and it even shows it on here. Sorry, guys. This hasn't happened. All the goofy things that has happened. Let's try this again. I'm in Windows. I have Amazon Basics. All right, let's try this again. I'm going to do it through a different format because right now through StreamYard it's on. It's showing me. It's the little things going up and down. But I think when they rebuilt the computer, they just didn't fix the screen. They fixed. All right, let's try this. Hold on. All right, so it's there. It's already set to there. Let's try this again. All right, so.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right. So let's hope it doesn't switch back. It keeps switching back from the Windows one and the StreamYards one. That's goofy. All right. So as long as this lasts, where were we? Oh, Star Trek. Yeah.
Star Wars, not Star Trek.
Dude, I've been on this earth for a very long time, and I do that shit at least once a day. The Star Wars series isn't clear about when it takes place, which means it shouldn't be on your list. But it's your list.
It does say a long, long time ago.
Yeah, that could be last year. I mean, 2020 was a long time ago for us. Given the film's open with the famous text a long, long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. But one thing is for certain, as vague as that may be, by a long time ago, Star Wars undoubtedly is set in the past, making it perhaps the most famous science fiction series explicitly set during years gone by. Stretch. Though, of course, Star Wars qualifies as a fantasy series. Yeah, because it ain't science fiction. In many ways, which leads to the old or long time ago time frame making more sense. Additionally, while the series focuses on faraway planets and life forms, they do draw from our own history, further refreshing the past with otherwise futuristic ideas, concepts, and visuals. Yeah, that one's tough. Okay, Life of Brian. Now we're just getting weird. This is one of the weirdest movies ever made.
Yeah.
I don't do drugs, and this movie made me feel like I was on drugs.
Dude, most of Monty Python will make you feel like you're on drugs.
This one made me want to check my own blood and be like, all right. So, yeah, let's see. Hold on. I'll get to this Terminator question in a second. All right. So, okay. Life of Brian is not a science fiction film. It's just weird. It's a little sneaky to imply it is. A classic Monty Python film is a comedy with historical setting taking place during the Jesus life and focusing on a man named Brian whose own life takes a turn towards the unfortunate when he becomes mistaken for the Messiah. In reality, he's just actually a very naughty boy. The movie is I can't even describe it here. But
try watching Meaning of Life. It's even more surreal than this movie.
It is. But there's a scene where Brian falls into an alien spaceship, and for a brief and incredibly surreal few minutes, he's whisked around space before being ejected from the craft, only to end up right where he was abducted. He does not think much of it, nor does he tell anyone about it. It's not addressed later in the film, but during that brief and out of this world scene, the movie set some 2,000 years ago transforms into a science fiction film for the sheer audacity of that scene alone and deserves a mention. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. I email this guy on his list. That's it. All right. I hadn't read that list before. I just thought it was an interesting topic to bring up on a Saturday night. I wish I had known how half-hearted it is. I'm gonna email this guy, man. Listen, dude, I got a bone to pick with you. First of all, do you know the difference between time travel and movies taking place? And it's a big difference. So, well, all right. So, so yeah, that was I had that. Not a lot. Not a lot going on this week. A lot of stuff happening, but not a lot of it's continuation from stuff last
other
week.
weeks.
Yeah, we're still going through Sandman for some of you. I know it's all on the episodes, but I want you all to watch it. Then we'll do a deep dive into Sandman. Now that I got my laptop back, we can actually start doing Sci Fi Center Presents because those are done from here. Those aren't done from the house. Those are done from here on like Sundays or something like that. And now that I'm basically going to be available the next 10 Sundays because of Game of Thrones, we actually starting next week, we are going to actually start recording us, Dawson, all get together. I have a list, if we can remember what that list was, of things that we really need to dive into. I think Sandman is prevalent right now because it's in the ether right now. I think we'll start with that one because that's going to be with a lot of people really want to hear about. So we are.
Oh, did you catch the bonus episode they dropped?
Yeah. Because a certain co-host wasn't here at the beginning of the show, he missed that part. I'm just kidding. Yeah, the cat of 1,000 Dreams and Calliope, which are beautiful, which are beautifully done. This series, and I'm not a guy who rewatches stuff. Once I watch it, the only thing that I rewatch over and over again to the point where I can memorize not only the words and the mannerisms are Blade Runner 2049, Godfather's Part 1 and 2. That's it. Other movies I will watch certain scenes of, especially in the digital area where I can just go to certain scenes that compel me. But even movies I love the Dune. I'm not watching that movie again. I loved it, but I don't love it there's love in revered, and there's like shit. That's 3 hours, man.
Okay, so this is what I'm gonna do with Dune. Okay, I haven't watched it since I watched the time when it came out. Okay, and I'm gonna watch the second part of it, and then I'm probably gonna watch them together, and then I probably won't watch them for years.
It's like 10 hours of movies.
Well, yeah, but God, that book is overbloated, and I love that book. But anyway,
I do books like that are super long. It's like, oh, dude.
and the dude,
I mean,
and now
that's what turned me off from Stephen King books, is I couldn't.
and now he's talking about doing the second book, which was not even a quarter of the size of the first book, as a movie, as long as the second part of the first movie does well, which it's going to. Warner's
Yeah,
probably gonna.
you're talking about an Academy Award level a production. And that first one was, I thought the first one was epic. And Dave Bautista continues to get better as an actor.
Oh
This was
yeah,
a guy who was on my screen as a wrestler for most of his life. And when I saw him in Blade Runner 2049, and if I ever get a chance to meet him in person or on screen, I'm going to let him know that I don't care what you do from here on out. The most important 7 to 8 minutes that you did for me was in that movie. The Blade Runner 2049 is literally 2 hours and 49 minutes long. But the tone is immediately set by his character, Sapper Morton, who does not last long, but he sets the movie off in a direction that is reverberates throughout the entire movie. Even though he's not there, he's there, because what he says and does echoes throughout the entire movie. That is really hard to do. It's really hard for actresses and actresses to maintain a presence when they're on the screen. This guy does it, and he's not in the movie for the most part. You feel him in that movie. And there's another thing, a little short that they did. It was a prequel that led up to the release of 2049 called Blackout. And then there's another one like On the Run, where it shows you how his character was sought out and all that. His character is Morton. If you just want to YouTube or Google Sapper Morton, you'll understand who and what I mean. And if you've all seen Blade Runner 2049, you see how he changes. The main character is Officer KD-3.6. Officer K for short, and he comes into the movie one way, and after his encounter with Sapper Morton, he's a changed man, and that change continues throughout the movie. So, all right, so that I think I covered everything. I think this is probably going to end up being the shortest of the Sci-Fi Center Presents. I count my word though, because if you are on East Coast time, and I think everybody in this stream is, we are now. Whoa. Oh, okay. I thought you were saying Naomi Watts had been killed. I'm like, what the hell? Yeah.
Not another one. Not another one.
Dude, oh, fuck. I'm sorry. I just read a little bit of that. Yeah, I heard about that. I heard that there was a pilot film that they spent a whole lot of money, like 20-something million on it, and they decided they didn't want it. That's the kind of quality control you want. If it doesn't move you, then don't do it.
Yeah. They said it just didn't work for him. I read about that pilot.
Oh, this is about Matt Smith. He's a Time Lord. He'd get the throne if the question does he want it? If he's just pointing. Well, in this show, Daemon Targaryen wants the throne, and he's pissed at the fact that because the king, as it starts out, because this show is going to cover a lot of time, a lot of years. There are people that will end up in the show that haven't been born yet. There are pivotal people in the show that will become pivotal people, depending on how they time travel or time jump, that are not even born yet. But as it stands now, King Viserys does not have an heir other than his daughter. This is what the show is about.
Yep.
His daughter, he has no sons. He only has his daughter. His eldest daughter is in line for the throne. But the Westeros law and in the law of the Seven Kingdoms, it's the first son of the first son. And if there is no first son, then it at that time, it goes to the next eligible male. So Daemon Targaryen, under those laws, would technically become the king once Viserys dies.
Yep.
All right. But, and here's where things get sticky, and here's the whole premise of the show. Because they don't want a war, which eventually happens anyway, that's what the show is about. They want Viserys to name his heir before he dies, in case anything happens to him. So he names his daughter as the queen of the Seven Kingdoms. Half the kingdom doesn't want that because they don't think a woman should ever rule the kingdom. This was before the Game of Thrones era, where Cersei and Dany and all that were fighting for the throne, and it would have been accepted if they were queens. This was 200 years before, so they were still thinking like we thought of women in our old times. So the kingdom is like, no, a woman can't be a queen. They'll never let a woman sit on the Iron Throne. And so the natural progression is that Daemon Targaryen will take the throne. I don't know if what I'm about to say is a spoiler, but it is very important that you know a certain thing happens that sets the stage for this show. I don't know if I should say it though, because it's critical. So I'm not going to. Something happens in the show that complicates all of this. And I don't know at what point during the show or what season, or this year or next year, that they will put that. If you've read the story, don't spoil it in the chat. If you read the story, you know what I'm talking about, and you understand where I'm at a crossroads. I'm at a conflict of where this might be a spoiler. Technically, it's all out there for you to read. But if you do not want to, I'm not going to ruin it for you. So, all right. Let's see. Spill it. She wants me to spill it. I mean, it's the premise of the show that kind of gives it away. I mean, I pretty much already kind of said it. I mean, one of the trailers, even though Daemon Targaryen is her uncle, you see them embracing. So you know they're gonna be banging each other. Oh, Viking. What should I do? Should I say it? Should I? Is there a spoiler stream in here?
Whether we tell them or not, anybody who's seen the original Game of Thrones knows how Targaryens do.
All right, everybody. I'm gonna hold my hands up. While I'm saying this. So if you do not want this spoiled, this is where you mute things. And as long as you see that spoiler ticker down at the bottom, I'm still talking spoilers. All right. I'm going to give you 5 seconds. I'm going to count back. When I'm done with those 5 seconds, I'm going to tell you. 5. When I put my hands down like this, that means the spoilers are done. But while I have them up, that's why I'm spoiling. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. Viserys dies at some point, possibly in the first episode or two, depending on how they spread this apart, if they are keeping it by the books. Okay.
Yep.
He does not die before Rhaenyra, who is his daughter's best friend, ends up marrying the king and having a son. Technically, he is now the heir. By the old laws, he is the heir over both Daemon. He is the heir over her, because even though she is older, she's a woman, and it's the first son of the first son. That's the rule. Okay. However, I think depending on I think he either dies before the child is born and they know what it is. And if that's the case, the standing law is that who he names as his heir is the sovereign of the 7 kingdoms.
Yep.
The kingdom is split because we have the groups called the Reds and the Greens. The Greens is now his wife, who was her childhood friend. They were best friends, and you'll see that depicted. They were best. She's a brunette. Now there is a split because she wants her son to ascend to the throne. And Rhaenyra, who is his daughter, technically is the rightful heir to the throne. That is what starts the Civil War. Daemon Targaryen originally wants to become the king in his place, but he falls in love with Rhaenyra, his niece, which is customary when it comes to Targaryens. It's just they bang their brothers and sisters. That's how it happens. All right.
Yeah. That's how they get that pretty platinum hair.
There you go. And they keep it that way. That's all they get Mad Men too. But
and Mad Women.
Yeah, he changes his allegiance because they have a kid. And if she's the rightful heir, their son is the rightful heir. So that's how the Civil War splits. That is the premise of the show. All right. That is the premise of the show. That's not as much spoilers as it is advanced table setting. So I'm going to put my hands down now. So we're done with the spoilers. All right. We are done. And now I will take that ticker off. All right. For those of you who have tuned back in, who are still in there and you know, and when you rewatch this, I did my best to warn you. I'm not really giving anything away. I'm not giving away who lives or who dies, other than obviously, you know, because of the fact that we're fighting over throne, there would be no fight if there was a king. So, you know, that's easy for you. So, okay, so yeah, a lot of you guys already know that that's the basis of the show. So I'm not spoiling a lot of it for people. I just want to make sure that I hate when people ruin things for people, and I just don't want to be that guy that does it. So that's why I put spoiler alerts. Tomorrow, fuck everybody. You're getting spoiled from
tomorrow night.
Yeah.
Yeah, tomorrow night, definitely spoiled.
Yeah. Do not tune in to the Sci-Fi Center Live if you have not watched the show first, or you don't want premises spilt, because tomorrow is a spoiler show. I'm going to put the spoiler ticker will be there the entire time. I will tell you the first time, and I will tell everybody in the audience, we're spoiling this shit today because we're reviewing the show. It's out there and it's in the domain. Do not, if you're going to watch my show, you don't want to watch it live, you like watching us, thank you for watching us. Hit the like button, do all that stuff. But just make sure that you understand that tomorrow is a post-game show. Tomorrow we are reviewing the show for the first time since 2019, pre-pandemic. So you just add 20 years to that, basically. We've all grown 20 years since 2019. You know, so now we have something to talk about for the next 10 weeks, and who knows how long the show will last. I think they are going to, I don't think it's going to stick with the House of Dragon as far as these guys goes, because there's a lot. This story covers decades. The one we're about to embark on.
Oh yes.
This story it covers decades.
It's technically, so, if you're looking at it from a historical perspective, it's technically the War of the Roses. A lot of the story is based on the War of the Roses. It's based on the Yorks and the Lancasters in Britain that ended up turning out with the Tudor dynasty. But hey, that's beside the point.
just put the link in the chat to the channel. You can watch it on. You can watch it on my channel. You can watch it on Poindexter. You can watch it on both. I think it combines the audiences. So we're going to be having some fun with this tomorrow. And like I said, it's just been so long since we've been able to talk Thrones, and to be able to do it with a studio audience there. I'm going to be there getting set up early because I don't want to have any of the glitches. I want the show to go smoothly. So I'm going to be setting up, running tests. You might see me pop up and throughout through the next the hours leading into it, just say, hey, I'm here. Anybody see me? Can anybody hear me? Everybody hear me? Good. Bye. Because I want this to go flawless. Because like I said, this will be the first time we're doing it in front of people, live people, not just the YouTube people. There will be people in the audience and, you know, eating and drinking. And this will be the first time I've ever done anything like this where I will be able to show you the audience. A lot of times we'll be doing the show during the day, like when we were doing these Friday shows, which we'll get back to now that the laptop is back, where we were customers would come in. And I don't know if you were on the stream. I would literally have to hand the show over to Brian while I did a transaction with a customer. And I would turn the camera on them sometimes. And sometimes, like one of my customers, Ruben, we would talk about the comics he was getting. Like I would be say, hey, you read this? And he asked me if I read it. And we would be talking. So I'd ask him, hey, you want to be on camera? But that's what we're going to do tomorrow. Everybody showing up knows that they're going to. So if you're wanted by the U.S. Marshals or the FBI, don't come in tomorrow because I'm putting you on camera. So if I'm the one who gets you captured, I'm collecting the ransom. And I won't feel guilty. So,
and I want to answer a question in the chat just real quick.
Let me get
from Anthony Manzano, hashtag MOB. The genre that meshes well with science fiction is probably going to be horror. You get things like Alien, The Thing. Horror and sci-fi really don't overshadow each other too much. in my opinion.
Okay. I'm going to agree with that simply because horror and science fiction deal with the unknown. They deal with the unknown, and it leaves for a lot of room for our imagination to do whatever. We've never seen an alien before that we know of, so we can use our imagination to dictate what an alien would look like based on our fears of the unknown, our own human nature. One of the things about The Thing, if both versions of The Thing, they are Cold War movies. They were both taking place in the different ends of the Cold War, and they were both about xenophobia and distrust about the person next to you. We embody those things in the stories that we tell during that era into aliens. What we don't know and trust is alien to us, literally within the word. So xenophobia, xenomorphs, things like that. When it comes to horror, our fear of what we cannot use our available science to explain becomes science fiction and horror because our imagination is based on the worst case scenario. So when science fiction and horror intersect, if we see a saucer, a lot of times, I mean, what's the more entertaining story? The one coming down and treating us great like the Vulcans did, or V, where they're coming to and they're lizard people and they just want to eat us? You know, so science fiction and horror are the easiest to overlap. I think the worst genres to overlap are science fiction and comedy. I am a guy, and
Yeah.
I am rare. I have not paid to see a comedy in a movie theater since Tropic Thunder in 2008, 2009, I think. I don't pay for comedies.
Okay.
I don't watch them for the most part. It's not my deal. I don't like it. So when
I
you
think one of the greatest sci-fi and horror authors ever, H.P. Lovecraft, said it best when he said, "The oldest and strongest emotion of mankind is fear, and the oldest and strongest kind of fear is fear of the unknown."
Yeah.
And that's why they go together very well.
Yeah, comedy is the worst one. Drama is drama is good. Like, okay, I'm going to give you an example of how drama works well. Anything that Ray Bradbury did. You read the Martian Chronicles, you understand that there's drama. There's not a lot of science fiction there.
Actually, even more mainstream. One of the best parts of any Star Trek movie when it shows really good drama is Wrath of Khan, the death of Spock.
Yeah, because it's dealing with elements of aging and vengeance and all the human emotions. So yeah, I agree with that. That's cool. I didn't even see that question come up, boy. I'm gonna need a producer tomorrow. Because there's gonna be so much going around with me. I might have to get Stella in here to help me. Stella, I'm gonna have to figure out. We still need to figure out how I can get you in as as somebody that can be in the stream with us, not in the chat, but in the actual stream. I'm gonna get with Enosh tomorrow because I'm gonna need you tomorrow. There's no way I'm gonna tear this show up if I don't have somebody adding into it. So let's see, Anthony
Okay,
McDonough.
that one I can answer really quick. The Thing,
Hey, nobody asked you.
Event Horizon.
Worst movie, one of the worst movies ever made. Event Horizon suck. Event Horizon sucks.
I actually like it, but it does mix horror and sci-fi very well.
That storytelling, and I never got that movie. I've watched it several times, and I'm always the one sitting with my buddies, and they're like, "Oh, dude, I want to cry. It's so good." I'm like, "I want to cry because I want my time back."
Okay, well, the reason the easiest way to explain that, William, is crossing the warp barrier was a mistake. And the whole the real story behind that and why it is so horrifying is because to go faster than light speed, which is what they were doing with the engine of that ship, would break physics. So it's an unknown. Again, it leads back to the unknown. What happens when humanity tries to break physics?
It broke my mind, is what it broke. I'll answer this question with a movie called Life Force. Life Force.
Good movie. Good
Toby
movie.
Hooper. If you're offended by nudity, sorry, but that's not the whole of the movie. There's obviously Matilda May, who still is hot now in her 60s, by the way. It is Patrick Stewart. First time I ever saw Jean-Luc Picard before he was Jean-Luc Picard, and I am convinced that man was born looking like a 47-year-old balding guy because he's
And another really good horror sci-fi movie is the first Alien movie.
Yeah, well, that's definitive. That's probably that actually, I think that movie created the genre. of horror science fiction.
Yeah, because it was before The Thing. So yeah.
You know, and it was Ridley Scott trying to bounce back after Star Wars got released, and said I had to get off my ass and make something. You know, George Lucas just all made us look bad. Yes. All right. Number one, where I start one is going back to Sarah Connor Chronicles, a show that Fox execs should have their nuts ripped off for canceling. All right, that show I haven't seen. Listen, I liked the first 3 Terminator movies. I like Terminator 3. I think I love the way it explains
3 was Rise of the Machines, right?
Yeah, I love the way it explained that they were always going to end up where they were going to end up, and that
the Judgment Day was inevitable.
Yeah, Cyberdyne, and back when in Terminator 2, where once they killed what's his face from Cyberdyne, the creator of Cyberdyne, Dyson. Once they destroyed all that, why is the Terminator still there? Why is John Connor still there? Everything should have disappeared, and the only thing that should have been in an empty room is Sarah Connor, because there's no reason to ever send the Terminator back. And if there's no reason to send the Terminator back, there's no reason to send Reese back. And if Reese doesn't come back, the kid's not born. So that technically should have erased it. And when it didn't, then you know that they were wrong. They didn't do it. And in Terminator 3, they explain it. The only thing that them not finding, allowing it to be created by Cyberdyne, and them that technology being found in 1984 did is it sped up what was about to happen. It changed the timeline of what was supposed to happen. But what was supposed to happen was always going to happen. You just delayed it. And her meeting that general and the times that they would have met, he says, your father was the key. He always was. He's the only one that could stop this because he was the one that developed the programming. He was the base point. And that is time travel being told right. Not in-game, not Back to the Future, Terminator, and my beloved Star Trek, fly around the sun and die. But
didn't they fly through part of the sun's coronosphere?
With our shields that can barely stop Klingons from killing us, but it'll stop a gas giant. All right. But no, Terminator does time travel right. They always did. Terminator, Sarah Connor Chronicles did it perfectly. What they did is a story that took place after Terminator 2, but before Terminator 3. So she knows when she dies of leukemia and he said, well, you know, she fought it for years. They jump they jump out of that time so that the story that's being told is not corrupting the story that had it because it hadn't happened yet. That show had Shirley Manson as a T-1000 that had one of the best versions of a Terminator I'd ever seen. Brian Austin Green was in it. Summer Glau was in it. Lena
Headey, that's what to say. Wasn't that Summer Glau?
You know, and if I had my wish, I would start there. I would restart that series or that movie, and I would put it on every network that I would buy that franchise, and I would retell that story for. I would show it. I was like, here, you're going to watch these first 2 seasons of Sarah Connor Chronicles, and then we're going to start out from then because Lena Headey has not aged. Summer Glau is looking a little bit rough, but you know what? Money and makeup. You could get a different character for him because he's
Speaking of Lena Headey, I just saw her on my TV. Do you remember the Merlin series that was it was like a little mini series that had Sam Neill as Merlin?
It's an awful series. I remember it. Yeah.
She plays Guinevere in that.
Yeah.
Yeah, she plays Guinevere in that.
And she's in 300.
Yeah.
But yeah, if and then because they had he had at the end of the cliffhanger, they had gone to a future where they sent John Connor to the future, and to the point where his brother is there, but Kyle Reese isn't, and he's like, "Who are you?" And then his brother, he meets his father, so they're all there because you have to watch it. It was a very nuanced and complicated, but that's where I would start. These Terminator movies that they've been releasing lately. The last one, Dark Fate, wasn't a bad movie, but it wasn't a good Terminator movie. Genesis Blue.
Genesis was horrible.
What was the other one that they had?
It was Terminator, Terminator 2, Terminator 3, Rise of the Machines, Terminator Genesis, and Terminator Dark Fate. I think it's only been 6.
Yeah, that was the one where Matt Smith was in it, and one of a bad role for him. But yeah, a bad movie. So yeah, the franchise needs some help. But that's the basis I would use. I would start with that show, Brian Austin Green still likes the same. All these people. The only problem with that is it was canceled back in 2011, and now we're in 2012. But it's in reruns.
Oh, Salvation. We forgot Terminator Salvation.
Oh, that's with
that was with Jason Clarke.
Jason Clarke and Sam. What's his face?
Sam
Yeah.
Welling. The same
Worthington.
guy that's in Avatar. Worthington.
Yeah, Cal Worthington and stuff. I didn't get a chance to read a lot of them.
Okay, so Anthony
When you guys recommend books to me, I don't do a lot of reading unless it's comic books because I don't read that fast. I read the Game of Thrones stuff. I read most of Stephen King's books until I swore off reading for 10 years after reading the unabridged, the complete version of The Stand, and I wanted to pluck my eyes out. So I don't read a lot of novels these days. The last stuff I read was Game of Thrones, and I read 1984 on an annual basis. So I am literate. I'm just tired of reading now. I'm lazy. Sorry.
Okay, and as for Anthony Manzano's next question, I have not seen A Cure for Wellness, and Scanners is awesome horror sci-fi that deals with psychics. So
yeah,
that's actually really good horror sci-fi too.
Head's blowing up.
And a man who can destroy somebody's head. I've never seen A Cure for Wellness, so I can't speak on that one.
I want to say that's a medical science fiction, more medical-based science fiction horror, procedural horror, but it's a creepy movie, dude. We promoted that movie.
Another good sci-fi horror movie, Jeff Goldblum's The Fly.
That's just gross. It's sci-fi, yeah, because we're dealing with teleportation elements, but man,
but it's horrific too because
he starts falling apart, and I'm not getting worse. I'm getting better, and he's peeling off his ear, and that green shit's coming out.
And Stella makes a good point. Stella makes a good point down at the bottom too. She says audiobooks, William. Listen to audiobooks.
All right, and here's a problem with that. And yeah, that's how it's probably going to end up going. But then now all the 18 years of stuff I'm supposed to watch on streaming and the shows, it's like, dude, it's like
it's farther out and farther out and farther out.
It's like I just need to not be doing anything but watching this stuff, but that's just not possible now. I mean, every aspect of my life is taken up by either doing something or doing something else. I need to slow down, but it's not happening.
That's what happens when you live your life in entertainment.
Yeah, selling stuff. Let's see, Salvation, Dark Fate, Kristen Bale. Kristen Bale was in that movie too.
Yes, he was John Connor.
Ugh. Yep.
That was also the movie. That was also the movie that he got famous for yelling at people on set.
Yeah, but when you get that Oscar, people, don't want to work with you. Yeah, words are hard. Time is harder than words. Okay. Yeah, and I wish I had enough money to buy it, man. I just wish I had enough cash to just buy that goddamn thing.
Dude, seriously, like we could do so much with the Terminator franchise if we could just get our hands on it.
Okay, hey, what version, Anthony? Which version? Because there's several, and I have a version. My favorite version is the 1978 version with Donald Sutherland.
Oh,
I love that movie, but which version is worse? Because you could be talking about the 1956 version.
Well, the ones that I remember is there's the 1950 something version. There's the one with Donald Sutherland, which is 76, right?
78.
78. And then there's the one in the early 90s. I like the one in the early 90s, and I like the 70s one.
With it's called Body Snatchers.
Yeah.
And it has Meg Tilly in it.
Yep.
It has
another good
Gabrielle Armour, who's in Burn Notice. That has her. She's a star.
Yeah. Another good sci-fi horror movie that a lot of people don't think about, The Blob.
Okay, well, which version? Because the 1988 version made me want to get it and run out of the theater.
I liked that version.
That movie fucking scared me.
The one with Steve McQueen was kind of tame, but the 88 version is the 88 version is horrifying.
Yeah, that's just ketchup.
And what's interesting about the 88 version was somewhat actually really scientific, because now we're finding out that weird stuff can come from asteroids. Weird bacterias and other things. Process called panspermia. apparently possible to transfer life forms on asteroids.
Sorry about that. Yeah. It's like 11. It's midnight. I got customers coming in. I should have locked the door. The 1988 version was great. Remember, there's a scene in the 1988 version where the chick is caught in the phone booth, and she's been looking
Yeah.
for this guy named Herb. Remember Herb?
Yeah. Herb.
And the way that this thing's eating and dissolving people, it still kept you, and while it's dissolving. And as
Yeah.
you see, as it surrounds her and encases her in the telephone booth, and she could see through the glass Herb being eaten and dissolved as he moved across the glass. She's like, "Oh, Herb!"
The
And then
one
it
scene
explodes inside.
the one scene that horrified me the most is when they're all holed up in the building, and then the blob grabs that one guy and snaps him through the shelving of a bookcase,
Yeah, and then he
like
snaps
snapped him in half.
And then when he sucks the person through the sink drain, and the sink drain getting all, but yeah, that
Yeah.
movie was uncalled for. Wow, that movie fucked me up. Yeah, okay, so you're talking about the earlier version. Once again, another Cold War movie. This movie was
Yep.
based. Both versions were based in the Cold War versus the other versions. Once again, you not being able to trust the person you've known standing, and that's in the 50s. We were dealing with the Red Scare and the Spy Scare, so a lot of these movies that had to deal with aliens. Aliens was the or was the symbol of that stranger or that person not being the person. He's acting differently. What is he? Is he? What's different about him? And that's what these alien invasions. That's why they look like us. They talk like us. Can we trust our neighbor? Can we trust our own family members? And that's what movies like The Thing and Body Snatchers is all about. Now the later versions, I know Nicole Kidman did one, which I did not like.
It's a real metaphor for xenophobia.
Yeah, and that's all the Cold War was at a time because we didn't know. Hers was Invasion. Invasion was, I love Nicole Kidman, but I hate that movie. So yeah, but the one Body Snatchers, the one that Body Snatchers was released in 1993.
Yeah.
About as close to the 1978 version as any other version. The 1950 version, 50s version was to me 50s horror. Listen, when it comes to science fiction and horror, before I saw anything from the 50s and the 60s and all that, I was watching Jason split heads. I was watching the Body Snatchers, the Donald Sutherland version. I was watching an alien burst itself bloodily out of a human chest. So the stuff that they could do in the 50s, even though these movies are classic and they're great, when they remade them, like The Thing, they couldn't move.
Stephen King's son wrote a story in one of his short. Joe Hill, who is Stephen King's son, wrote a story in a short story collection of his called "And You Will Hear the Locust Sing," and it's based on 50s like giant atomic horror. That's also a part of what the 50s sci-fi horror was too.
Oh yeah, Godzilla.
It was about the fear of of atomics and things like Godzilla, things like Them, which is giant ants with cardboard wings. Tarantula, any of the alien invasion movies, but that story, You Will Hear the Locust Sing, was a really good short story. It's about a kid who wakes up. He's kind of a loser kid that nobody cares about. Even his parents don't care about him. And he wakes up and he finds he's slowly turning into a locust because he lived near the atomic testing range. And it's a really interesting story.
To answer this question here, you guys can still hear me, right? Because you froze for a second, Stan. I don't know if it was me or you. It's probably me. If they remade Invasion of Body Snatchers today for you guys, who would be the director to remake it? Ugh. A contemporary director. I would want to see. There's two people I wouldn't mind. Jason Blum and Denis Villeneuve.
I was going to say Denis Villeneuve, but Jason Blum would do it well too.
So those are the two. Outside of that, it starts to get really sketchy.
There's another movie. It's a Blumhouse movie. It's either Blumhouse or A24. I can't remember which, but it's a movie called It Follows.
I know,
and
that is, yeah.
It's A24. Okay, it's a metaphor for the fear of. It's a metaphor for our society of becoming oversexed and the passage of STDs, except for in their case, the STD is a supernatural STD. And that is a
Okay, yeah.
really freaky movie.
I think I gave away passes for that.
It was a good movie. I mean, if you take it for what it is, but it does have a lot of like. It goes back to what we've been talking about movies here, with the whole metaphor of it meaning
Yeah.
it having another meaning.
Write this down. Take a note. We need to do. We need to tackle each decade's science fiction genre at some point. I don't know how.
Okay,
long
I'll take a note of that. I'll take a note of that.
60s, 70s, and that's while I'm thinking about that. All right, Anthony Manzano, thank you for contributing with great questions. I like I said, I love the show to take its own.
Clinton Huntley names another good movie, Night of the Lepus. It's a giant rabbit movie. Giant rabid rabbit.
Of course, Clint would bring that. Clint works here at the Sci Fi Center. Of course, Clint would bring up some.
Okay. He brings up another good idea. Guillermo del Toro.
I'm answering first.
Okay, go ahead.
All right, Anthony Manzano. Okay, in the last 10 to 20 years, what is your favorite science fiction horror movie? Science fiction or horror, so the combination of both. You know what? Go ahead and answer that one first.
In the last 10 to 20 years, for me, oh God, there's a couple. Let me think.
There hasn't been too many mixtures together that I've liked because I've either seen some great science fiction or I've seen some great horror, but I don't know who in the last 10 to 20 years. So that's taking us back to 2002.
Yeah, hold on. I'm going to look up a couple of things because I'm drawing a blank too. But then again, I'm an old man, so. Or
I should be able to come up with this immediately, but I can't because I'm not.
Oh well, we just had one come out. A movie called Nope. Nope was really good.
Why couldn't I think of this? Oh no, never mind. That's not science fiction though.
What?
I was going to say Let the Right One In, but that's horror. That's not science fiction.
Yeah.
I mean, I could say Predators with Adrian Brody in it, but
well, there's Relic.
That's not
there's the movie Species, the original one, not
Wasn't
the.
That 2001 though. That's beyond this time.
It's 95. Never mind. It's out of that time period. Okay, never mind. Slither, James Gunn's Slither, sci-fi horror.
That movie's hard to watch. Okay, yeah.
Oh, it's hilarious, man.
When the lady explodes.
Yeah. Cloverfield is another good one. Please do not mention Cloverfield Paradox. That's a horrible movie.
Cloverfield. Somebody asked me what was the worst found footage. I think I saw the first worst found footage movie I've ever seen. Cloverfield. Listen.
No, the Cloverfield Paradox is worse.
Cloverfield, it's on the ban list now. Cloverfield, I always say I have an issue with this movie. You built up a year. I'm sitting in 2007, and I think January, July, whatever. It's watching the Transformers. All right, and I get this scene, this trailer that nobody had ever seen before. Nobody knew was coming, and they're partying, and all this stuff is going on, and all of a sudden you're just stomping and stomping, and everybody runs outside on the terrace, and you see the Statue of Liberty's head come bouncing down a major street in New York. And for the next 9 months, because it was July, I saw this, or not 9 months, or whatever, how many months was gone. I think it was like Cloverfield was released in January of 2008, I think. So for the time in between, and they did a viral ad campaign where you're like, what is it? What's the monster look like? All this.
Oh, yeah. I remember that.
All that for 6 minutes of actual monsters, not including the little crab things that make everybody explode, which was awesome, by the way, but not enough of that. I got a human interest story. And if you've read or seen anything about me, watched anything on a stream with me on it, when the sound of my voice, I don't fucking care about human interest. All right. If I come to see a monster movie, the only interest the humans have in it for me is to die.
I got a good one that neither one of us thought about, William. A Quiet Place. The first one.
First two, actually.
They had the first two. Yeah.
First two.
Another one, and this kind of This one kind of copies 3 genres if you really think about it. The movie Brightburn.
Yeah, it's a superhero. Technically,
It's a
anti
it's
whatever the
it's
hell
a,
he is. Yeah,
it's a superhuman horror movie.
yeah, it's things don't go well. Wow, dude, if
There's
they made the
also
birds today, that'd be cool. They
there
ripped apart
there's
the birds.
also another movie. It's got Ryan Reynolds, Jake Gyllenhaal, several other people in. It's called Life.
That movie sucked. We promoted
Yeah,
that
but it
movie.
is sci-fi horror though.
Yeah, okay, but he said the question was my favorite. So in order for them to be my favorite, they actually had to be good.
Oh, have you
Life was
seen the
not.
William? Have you seen The Color Out of Space with Nicolas Cage?
Mm-mm.
It's based on an old H.P. Lovecraft story, and it is really, really good. Nicolas Cage is actually not being crazy in it, aside from what works for the movie itself for the character. Also, the most recent Invisible Man movie, really
Oh,
good.
oh yeah, the one with Elizabeth Moss in it. Yeah,
Yeah,
this would be great. I forgot that his name would be up there. His name would be number 3 on that list.
Guillermo del Toro.
Yeah.
Yes, 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 most definitely.
All right, guys.
Especially for a body snatchers movie. Ooh.
I think I've covered all my bases, and I pretty much I think I've yeah I have successfully, like the Sandman, shepherded you through the waking, through the dreaming. I have shepherded you and led you through what was Saturday, August 20th, to Sunday, August 21st. And guess what? August 21st is Game of Thrones, people. It's game day. We
Anthony,
made it.
just your last question here. The Birds is actually an allegory for the Cold War, as it's an invasion movie.
Yeah, it's Shelter Inside. It's a shelter movie, as they call it
It's a
today.
shelter-in-place movie.
Man, if they made that today, if like fucking what's his name? What's the
Alfred
guy?
Hitchcock.
Yeah, but if they made it today and gave it to like Rob Zombie or somebody, and it's just the birds are just ripping the meat off of people, it's like they'd
That
be
would.
like piranhas. Instead of just killing you, pecking your eyes out, they're just eating you and
Oh, there you
disembowering you.
go. You just named another good sci-fi horror movie, another campy sci-fi horror movie for the last 20 years.
What's that?
Piranha, the
Oh
remake of
yeah,
Piranha.
3D one. Yeah, yeah. And then like Anaconda movies like that. Anaconda was science fiction because it was bullshit. Anacondas, if they could move that fast, even the people who grew up in the Amazon would flee the Amazon.
Well, dude,
That
also
science fiction people would be there.
remember the snake talked. Snakes don't talk, homie.
Well, snake anacondas don't move that fast. They're fast and they can hit you, they can get you. But that snake was doing things in that movie that's like, okay, this is science fiction. But yeah, Piranha was hilarious.
The platform is terrifying and Annihilation is beautiful, but I don't like that story.
The story just disappointed me. It had potential. I still have buttons here for Annihilation.
The platform is terrifying.
Haven't seen the platform yet. Life Force is free on Amazon Prime.
Yes, it is.
It's a great movie. If it's a space vampire movie, yes, there's gratuitous nudity in it.
Oh God, your guy Quentin brought up Sharknado.
This is what I expect from Clint. Sharknado, he brings it up here. Life Force is a vampire movie first.
Yes, it is.
Okay,
and
yeah,
a good one.
There's a naked woman walking around for the first 15, 20 minutes.
Did you ever see the movie The Quartermass Experiment?
I don't remember it, but I think
it was the 60s and 70s horror movie series, but it was really good.
Yes. I've shown those. I remember those now. But Life Force, Toby, Patrick Stewart's in it, and a bunch of other people that you'll never see again. Sorry, because their careers didn't go anywhere. And it was 1985, and it was, looking back at it now by today's horror and psychological thriller standards, it would be a horrible movie. But when I saw it in 1985, and I was just getting into British horror at that time, I was 11 years old. Getting British horror.
You remind me of British horror and sci-fi. One movie that I really loved, but is very obscure, but you mentioning Life Force reminds me of it, is a movie called The Lathe of Heaven. It's about a guy that learned
deep in the dungeon. I haven't seen that one.
It's about a movie. It's a movie about a guy who finds out he can do effective dreaming, which means his dreams he can make his dreams reality. So things that he dreams about, like he changes the world just by going, okay, this is what I'm going to do to cause world peace. But then each thing that he does to change the world with his dreams ends up going wrong. It's kind of like a Twilight Zone kind of thing. But like he tries to change the world several times, and he realizes that you just can't.
Sounds cheesy, Thade. Sorry.
It's actually really good. It's good. I'm not really explaining the premise very well, but look up a movie called The Lathe of Heaven.
I can't even spell that. Anthony, would you see the movie 30 Days of Night? Okay, would you see the movie 30 Days of Night? I understand it's a vampire movie. Dude, 30 Days of Night may be arguably the greatest vampire movie ever made.
Oh
And
God, yeah.
I know people are Lost Boys. For what Lost Boys was, Lost Boys is a classic. Don't get me wrong. Listen, dude. All right, especially after.
Would you consider Blade sci-fi vampire, sci-fi horror?
Yes, but I'll get to that. Yes, but I'll answer that in a second here. When it comes to 30 Days of Night, after so many romance Dracula movies, after so much love and soft porn Dracula movies, and I want to see you sparkle. Tell me about your feelings, vampire movies. Oh, I feel so magical. Give me eternal life. All I wanted to see is people get ripped apart and bleed. All right. All I ever wanted from a vampire movie was to see humankind get torn apart and ripped apart. I don't want to hear what these vampires in 30 Days of Night don't speak any English. They speak in Russian or Cyrillic. And when they don't speak very much at all. When they do speak, it's not even in English. It's in subtitles. And the only time that the guy, the main warlord, the main guy that they composite into one character, says when he says that scene when she's screaming for God and he looks around, he's like, no God. And it is on white snow. It's beautiful blood on white snow, and there's no love.
Lots of beautiful blood on white
no
snow.
Romance. There's no sparkling. There's no. I wish I wasn't a vampire. All the things I know. There's people getting ripped apart. All 3Ds.
Oh, and those vampires, their mouths are filled with shark fangs.
Death is there from the beginning. The movie is dismemberment, and destruction is how it ends. It is arguably the greatest vampire movie, in my opinion. You can give me Bela Lugosi, and you will not get an argument from me where these movies are as far as their greatness, but as far as for what my needs, and you should know my needs right now, and then pretty soon we're going to have a little a drop, all 3Ds in that movie, and it's beautifully done. Just blood stains on their mouth throughout the whole movie. Everything I ever wanted in a vampire movie is in that movie. All the other movies are just they're Dracula and
two other really good sci-fi horror movies. They're both Stephen King stories. Firestarter.
Night Flyer? You're gonna say Night Flyer, aren't you?
No. Firestarter. Well, actually 3. Firestarter, Carrie, and The Mist. The Mist has to do with a scientific facility opening up a rift, a la CERN. And the other two have to deal with psychics being created by the government.
The Sixth Day.
Sixth Day is a good movie.
Yeah, that's actually underrated. Dr. Sleep should have made a lot more money than it did. It was promoted.
Well, it was probably the best sequel to an original Stephen King story ever.
Yeah. Everything else is me. All right. That's it, man. We've gone 3 hours, roughly 3 hours. And like I said, I did my goal. You are now safely in August 21st. You're welcome. You can now go on with the rest of your lives until this afternoon. Then life stops again and begins with dragons. So I'm going to be streaming a lot.
Dragons.
And so for those of you today, 7:15 Pacific time, which will be 10:15 Eastern time.
And
I will be
9:15 my time.
Central Time. Who cares about you guys?
I'm your
I will.
co-host. You better care about my time, Peter.
You show up late anyway. So it'll be for Thade Standard Time 8:15 because he ain't showing up on time. But,
I won't be late tomorrow night. I'll be fresh out of watching that show.
Yeah, so 7:15 is when we'll get started. That should give you guys a time to absorb what you just seen, give you time to go get something to drink. So for me, I'm going to be watching it. I will be getting set up, and I'll have everything set up and ready. And this is going to be an experiment. Forgive me in advance for any technical difficulties. If you think that I fucked this up, wait till you see me off-site using somebody else's internet and equipment and doing things that I've never. Everything tomorrow is going to be something I've never done as far as the YouTuber goes. So if I'm able to pull this off at all, but I think it's really important that we do things like this. So, hey, thank you all for showing. Thanks for Clint.
William, hold on. Anthony wants two last questions answered, and I can answer them really quickly. You probably watched the original Sissy Spacek Carrie, and yes, that's a little campy. Watch the one with Chloe Grace Moretz in it. There's a little bit more horror there. And
Emily Bergel. There's one with Emily Bergel in it.
The Rage, Carrie 2, yeah. And The Gray is actually a really good movie. The Gray with Liam Neeson. Really good movie.
Yeah, Gray's a good movie. Not too many bad Liam Neeson movies. What was the other one? Okay, I understand that people found this movie to be ridiculous. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yes, the Dragons will be here soon. Okay. I've only seen The Gray one time, and it was quite a while back. What was the other movie he brought up? Oh, Carrie. Yeah.
He was talking about he's talking about he found Carrie campy. It was probably because he saw the Sissy Spacek version, which is a trifle campy.
That is not campy.
Well, I mean, it's good, but you got to remember, there's been 3 versions of Carrie.
Yeah, but
there's the Sissy Spacek version, the late 90s version, and then there's the one with Chloe Grace Moretz. And out of the 3 of them, the most terrifying one is the one with Chloe Grace Moretz in it, in my opinion.
So?
Yeah.
That one didn't scare me. The way that the original one opens is fucking horrifying, dude.
Yeah.
You know, especially if you were a chick at that age. Did you imagine going through that? And then the way she the way for the 70s, the way she kills people, and the way, you know, especially the prom night scene with all the wow, okay. Hey, everybody sees it differently though. You know, I thought the Chloe the Grace Moretz one was good, but I thought that it was a good horror movie, but I don't think it was a good Carrie movie in the vein that I think Carrie is one of the closest adaptations that he's ever done that actually came across well on TV. Not on TV, but in movies. A lot of his stuff is hit or miss. They're not bad movies, but they don't necessarily connect to where and like The Dark Tower.
No. And now I'm sad because they were going to do an Amazon series based on The Dark Tower, and it's been canceled.
Why would Amazon cancel it, though?
Amazon didn't cancel it. The showrunners canceled it because the Amazon wasn't playing ball or something like that.
Dude, Amazon's probably the best platform on there, giving everybody money. They're coming out with a new Blade Runner television series. I wept great tears. Anything new Blade Runner is.
I think it's the showrunners are just being, you know, a-holes.
Yes, I've seen all of them, and they're all creepy.
Creepy as hell. There's also another movie that not a lot of people think about, but I consider it sci-fi horror, and that's the movie The Cell.
Oh, we were just talking about that one, 22nd anniversary with Jennifer Lopez in it. Talking about that one, right? Jennifer Lopez? Yeah, that's a there are people that might not be ready for that movie in 2022. I sure as hell wasn't, or it was in 2000 when it came out. That was the most visually stunning movie I had seen in a long, long time. And it was about dreams, and it was about her invading his mind and his dreams to find this, find out where he had hid this person, where he had kept this person captive. I love that movie. That's one of the most underrated horror movies or serial killer movies. It's a serial killer movie, and that's my game. Serial killer movies are what
William, would you consider Poltergeist a sci-fi horror movie?
No, I consider
because it deals with psychics and stuff.
It deals with psychics, but the basis of it is supernatural.
Okay.
It's the basis of the whole. I mean, it's splitting hairs. Somebody could come in here with a really good argument the other way around. I never considered it one. I've always considered it a supernatural type movie. But you could, it's semantics at this point. You know what I mean? You could really make a good argument.
True. All right, guys, we really probably need to go.
So one last question. Yeah, no, not just the ending of Vanilla Sky. Vanilla Sky is science fiction. That's
oh god,
fiction.
yes, it's
All right,
really
guys, I really got to
science
get out of
fiction.
here because I have a throne to build and I have to cut it out of styrofoam. And you'll see it tomorrow if you tune in tomorrow. Tomorrow, 7:15.
Oh, and Jacob's ladder. But anyway, go ahead.
All right, Jacob's ladder was confusing. All right, guys, thank you for joining us. I hope we did you good tonight. I hope we help you get some sleep and get all that energy ready for tomorrow, 7:15, 6 o'clock, because y'all need to be watching Game of Thrones. It's time. All right, guys, thank you.